What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, well, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you were searching on the internet for another movie podcast, and you accidentally came across this one for whatever reason, and you're going to take a chance on us, and you are not a movie fan, well, we're going to convince you to be one. We're going to make you just feel warm and welcome to this little community that my co-hosts and I have started. It's going to be magical. If you're new to the show, welcome once again. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This is the first official episode of the new year. I'm ready to do this. 2018 is a good year ahead. What we typically do on this podcast, if you are new, is we'll go over some movie news and some movie trailers that have dropped throughout the week and commentate on them for you guys. And then we'll have our reviews of movies that come out on said weekend, and then of course the box office results to accompany said movies. On this week's episode, 213. It is going to be a hectic episode because we've been out of commission for 2 weeks in terms of proper show formatting. So we're going to have a bunch of news and trailers to talk about, and then we will have joint reviews of The Commuter, the new Liam Neeson Stuck on a Train movie, and then have our joint reviews of a movie that we saw 2 months ago, The Post. And so we can finally review it. It is opened nationwide, worldwide, whatever. It is out and about and there for the taking. But before we get into those reviews, I got to introduce the wonderful co-host over there, good old Joel. He is back once again. He's ready to get this year started. Joel, how are we doing this week?
It's been good. It's been kind of a crazy week. Yesterday, it feels like all of my city came into my store to sell all of their movies and TV shows because for about 6 straight hours, and this is not an exaggeration, for about 6 straight hours of my shift, there was some form of buy process going on because you can sell movies at my store. It's a movie trading company, so you can trade them in. And anyway, it was just insane because usually, probably 11 buys like in the time that I was there, and usually there's 5 or 6 in a day. So it was weird. It's like everybody was waiting in a parking lot and then coming in at intervals just to keep us busy. Because we didn't get anything else done yesterday, so it was, or at least during when I was there. But other than that, it's been an interesting week. A couple of award shows have gone by, and I'll be talking about those in a little bit. And otherwise, just kind of work, school stuff, all that. How's your week been?
It's been pretty well. This is the first week where we've had bitingly cold temperatures, and of course, yes. I have to walk in them, and I always feel like I'm walking through the Arctic, and I'm only walking like a mile through like a neighborhood. It feels like I'm in Antarctica, and it's just absolutely terrible. But I've been catching up on some movies and stuff. Saw a movie yesterday that will be the discussion for next week. Haven't been really many press screenings. We've been kind of shut out in a lot of them, so I've just been kind of picking and choosing which ones to see. Been seeing a lot of stuff on Netflix, been catching up on that. It's been fun. It's been good stuff. But Joel, I'm ready to get this started, man, because we have a lot. We have a lot to talk about. Of course, like I said, we've been out of commission for 2 weeks, so we have a lot to catch up on. But before we begin, just real quick, if you're listening to this episode, you want to spread this around and let people know at the top of the roof, you shout out and you go, Reel Me In is a decent podcast, listen to it. You take that link and spread it around, like, share, subscribe, whatever you have to do, spread this around and let people know this is the Definitive Movie Podcast. And speaking of that, Joel, we got to jump into it. Movie news time. I don't even know where to begin. I'm going to go ahead and just start off with the awkward news story that just has a bunch of negative light all around. So All the Money in the World. You guys know that this little movie from last year that was doing so well until Kevin Spacey decided to do some really dirty things, and so they had to kick him off the project. And Ridley Scott did the ballsiest move I've seen in quite some time and recast him with Christopher Plummer. They did it in like 2 weeks, and they edited his parts in, and the movie came out. And to most people's reactions, including Joel's, it's a good little movie. It's not like anything that's groundbreaking or anything, but for what they had to go through,
it's a solid B-, I think.
Yeah, so it's in the B range from what I've seen from Joel's reviews and other people's reviews. It's It's a solid film, and for what they did, it's kind of impressive. Well, unfortunately, even after this movie came out, this movie will not die in the news because it just keeps coming back up. So, you guys know this. When you hire an actor for a job that is a movie or a TV show, you pay them, and of course, in their contracts, most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, they will have to come back and do reshoots. Unfortunately, this is one of those circumstances where they had to come back and do reshoots for another reason and try to kind of rush the project. So they got Mark Wahlberg back, Michelle Williams, and Christopher Plummer, and to do all these reshoots really quickly, and then the movie came out, right? So they have to get paid. So now there was a news story that came out where we know exactly how much Marky Mark got paid and Michelle Williams got paid, and it's pretty disparaging to say the least. So Mark Wahlberg got paid around $1.5 million for the reshoots, and Michelle Williams got paid around $1,000. A little bit of a gap, if you will, but the story doesn't end there. Trust me, it gets a little deeper than that. So we first find out about that. Then we find out that Mark Wahlberg did not want Christopher Plummer in there because he had a say in terms of who his co-star was going to be. And so there was that whole debacle, and then, of course, just asking for that pay gap, which is already bad enough. Now the updated story is that Mark Wahlberg's agency is going to be donating that money that he got for the movie to the Time's Up organization, which is the organization to combat, the sexual harassment awakening that's in Hollywood right now, and having, women stand up and come and speak out and come forward and stuff. It's a really good, organization for that. But now their agency's donating that money. Okay, so with all that said and out of the way, that's the story. I want to get Joel's take first, because we haven't really talked about this, because we thought after the whole Kevin Spacey thing we would shut up about this movie, but unfortunately we have to keep talking about it. So Joel, to shoot it over to you first of all, what do you think about the pay gap scenario? What do you think about Mark Wahlberg's reaction to Christopher Plummer, and do you think that his agency donating this money is a complete guilt trip?
It pretty much is. So the pay gap thing is certainly not new news. I mean, this pay gap has been, there for a lot of movies, and it's terrible because there's already pay inequality in this country, and I feel like there just needs to be some sort of shakeup to that whole system. It's I think that she was paid like $320,000 for more work. She had more scenes to refilm than he did, and it's just weird. It's bizarre that in 2018, or I guess this is last November, so 2017, there had to be this kind of a pay gap still. I mean, this is still a problem, and luckily he's going to donate the money back, and he and his agency are, but for a great cause too. But still, I mean, the fact that we've gotten to this point is more telling than anything else. It's really, really bad. It's certainly a guilt trip on Mark Wahlberg's part. On himself mostly. At least he was paid the money. Now he can give it, to somebody else. But to have a clause like this in his contract is odd, to say the least, and it makes you question the genuineness of his move to donate. I mean, it if he had this contract, especially after Kevin Spacey, that whole thing happened, and he was removed from the movie. That's when this clause came up that if he had choice of co-star, he could negotiate for more money, and nobody else had that in their contract. It's just very strange. It's a very strange story with, at least a sort of a bitter / happy ending, because at least the money's going to be donated to a great cause, but nevertheless, where it comes from has sort of blood money. In a way, and it just man, it really just reeks of guilt trip to me. and it like somebody guilted him into doing it rather than it was actual generosity on his behalf, or philanthropy or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't seem like that, considering the news about the clause and about the fact that he didn't want Plummer in there. Apparently, he wanted Kevin Spacey, which might say something about him. I don't know. I'm sure that he didn't choose Kevin Spacey knowing his history, but nevertheless, the fact that he didn't want Plummer even after Kevin Spacey left, it really sheds an awkward light on Wahlberg. So it seems like this story is done. I don't know what else could come from it, but it'll be interesting to see, just what this kind of does to the movie. Now, it's still in theaters and people might still see it, but are they going to now? I mean, does this now shed a negative, the kind of negative light on the movie that Ridley Scott was trying to avoid by refilming everything with Plummer? It's very weird, just weird. So yeah, that's my thought.
It's a weird story. I think you're right. We both agree on this. It's a bittersweet ending. It's great that they decided to, donate that money. And actually, it makes it even more awkward because they donated it under her name, Michelle Williams' name. And it's like, well, she didn't get paid that much. So it's like, it's almost like you're slapping her in the face as well as trying to cover your ass. And it's like, it's such a weird move to do. I'm glad it's going to, a cause and not, like you said, blood money and all that stuff. I'm going to say something a little controversial. I don't think it's Mark Wahlberg's fault that he got paid that much, unfortunately.
No.
We live in this weird society where they favor bankable stars over actual talent. If you look at the actual statistics, Michelle Williams has 4 Oscar nominations, Mark Wahlberg has 2. And so she is clearly the better talent, which
no, here's the thing, and I know where you're going with that, and it's actually not. So, recent studies will show, and somebody did it. They took the last 5 wide releases that Michelle was in, which of course kind of date farther back than Mark Wahlberg because she's been in the indie circuit a lot recently. But the last 5 wide releases gained like $30 million more overall than the last five wide releases of Mark Wahlberg's. So right now it feels like people are drawn more to her, at least in the numbers, or she's chosen material that they want to see more with her in it than the stuff that Mark Wahlberg's chosen. He's got Lone Survivor, sure, but his Transformers movies didn't do super well, and he's a huge star, so you'd think they would. But certainly he had a longer run of time where he was a bona fide movie star, and he still is in a certain way.
Well, and that's where I was going with this, is that we live in this kind of culture where people like Mark Wahlberg, understandably, are going to get paid more, and Michelle Williams are not going to get paid as much, and which I think it should be the opposite. But this is a business, and you're completely right. If you are in bankable movies, you're going to have leverage in negotiating higher pay. Unfortunately, which I don't think this should be the case, but unfortunately, Michelle Williams cannot ask for much. Her agency cannot have that much pull because of her, like you said, track record. I completely agree with you. And I just, in our perfect world, like, film lover world, I wish Michelle Williams and people like her can get paid a lot. But unfortunately, she cannot. But I'm just saying, like, from our point of view, in terms of, like, these film nuts who enjoy actual talent over, people that get paid for mediocre movies, in a perfect world, we would say, like, oh, Michelle Williams should get paid, a lot. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. What I was just going to say was people that are jumping on Mark Wahlberg shouldn't do that. That's not his fault. He's going to get a lot of money no matter what project he works in, whether it be something like a Transformers film or a Daddy's Home movie, or if he does something a little bit more serious like this one or Lone Survivor. He's going to have leverage and pull to negotiate a lot of money. That's not his fault. The problem is him, like you said, the clause in the contract, getting angry at the whole Christopher Plummer thing, and then the blood money to donate that money to the Time's Up organization. That's where the real story is. I just want to make it perfectly clear that people are getting angry at the pay gap thing. That is not his fault. Okay, he has every right to negotiate that much.
It's a problem with the whole system.
Yeah, it's a problem with the whole system. It's not a problem with him. And so people that are barking on him, his attitude about this story stinks. The pay thing is not the disparaging thing. So I just want to put that out there, and we're going to drop this story. And hopefully this is Joel, I'm hoping this is the last time we have to talk about this movie, unless there's going to be some story that emerges from Ridley Scott himself, and it's like, oh, can we please move on? It's like, I'm tired of talking about this movie. It's going to come back
to haunt us.
I know. It's like when it comes out in Blu-ray, something else is going to happen. Whatever. All right, so the next story, it's going to, hopefully that is the last, bitter one we got to talk about, unless something else, takes a turn for the worse. But the next one is that, so 2017 has ended, and the top 3 films of the year in terms of box office wise, domestically, not worldwide, domestically, is Beauty and the Beast, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and Wonder Woman. And Joel did the notes this week, and he made a good point and pointed out that all 3 of these box office dominants have female-led characters in them, like main characters. And so Joel prompted the question, what does this mean as we enter this new year? And I can tell you that we are going to see an entire shift in terms of the way, companies hire people, in terms of having, women and people of color behind the camera and in front of the camera. It's going to be a different landscape. And when you have stuff like stories like these that, have women in the forefront, even in Wonder Woman's cases in the background as well with the director, that's great news. I want to see more diversity in the, with all these award shows like, you kind of brought up, that you're going to allude to a little later. It's like, Get Out's getting a lot of attention with like Jordan Peele and all that stuff. That's great stuff. We're about to, and a lot of people keep forgetting, next month, we're about to hit another milestone with Black Panther with a primarily all African-American cast. We have Ryan Coogler at the helm. I believe the only white people in the movie are Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis, as far as I can tell. So, that's going to be a huge...
And the first female cinematographer for a Marvel project, Rachel Morrison.
Yeah, so you brought that up, which, it gets buried under, the people that are, leading the movie. But you're right. It's like, it's stuff like that that's amazing. And I think as we enter in this new year, we're going to see a shift, and especially with the whole, and this, kind of ties into the whole Time's Up thing. A lot of people are standing up, and they're tired of seeing the same, kind of people being nominated or making movies and stuff. And that's a good thing. I want to see this kind of shift. As far as like the movies that are coming out this year, we have no clue, because unfortunately we're only a couple weeks into the new year, so we haven't really seen much in terms of what's really going to come out, and what's going to hit well, what's not going to hit well. We can make that kind of assumption and analytics when the year ends and see if this trend kind of goes forward. But I think just looking at last year's data, it's great news, and I'm excited to see the change. And like I said, the first real test is going to see how much money and how much attention Black Panther can get, because
also stuff like A Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah, Wrinkle in Time, Ava DuVernay. It's like, it's incredible, dude. I'm glad that you put that in the notes, because that is a huge.
And even if the shift isn't sudden, I feel like it's going to be over the course of the year.
It's a gradual change for sure.
Yeah, it's certainly a gradual change. Now that Hollywood has seen this, this information, and not even that, it's like in the indie world too. Lady Bird was the most, the biggest indie movie this year, directed by and starring a woman, or women, I should say, featuring a likely Oscar-nominated supporting actress. All of that, it's not even just in Hollywood. It's in all of these places, and it's great to see because it's been we're in 2018, guys. This should be the norm. It shouldn't be something that we're talking about as being something worth celebrating. It should be something that's already there.
Correct.
But now that it's actually come to the forefront with issues of representation, especially given the current administration, it's great to see all of this happen. And even if it isn't immediate, and it's not going to be immediate, that we have years like 2017 in terms of the box office. I feel like 2018 will be another year, even if it isn't the top three. I feel like there's going to be some sort of movie near the top or at the top that is led by women in some way, whether it's a female director or a female character.
Well, and the first change
or a person of color
we saw was like almost 10 years ago when Catherine Bigelow won the Oscar. So that was like kind of the first change that we saw, but that was so long ago that you're right. This can't just be something we talk about every 5 years. It needs to be the norm.
Yeah. It needs to be that, we've just seen, like, to kind of harp on the awards race a bit. Greta Gerwig won her Best Actress at the Golden Globes, and her movie won a Best Picture award. Yet she was not nominated for Best Director.
Makes no sense.
Makes absolutely no sense. At the BAFTAs, I believe she was also not nominated. So it's just, luckily the Critics' Choice stood up for her in that way, and luckily the DGA did. We'll get to that later on. But this stuff is ridiculous. We need to start recognizing that there's a shift happening, and through that, pay attention to these people as they make good work, and don't just worry about who wines and dines you the best. That's how the Golden Globes works.
Yeah.
So she was clearly not able to. Ridley Scott was, because they love him. So it's all kinds of conversations surrounding this, but I think that this means that there's going to be a shift. There's going to be some nastiness involved in that. In terms of along the way, we're going to see unfortunate things happen that sort of make you worry about humanity, because that's what happened last year. But nevertheless, I think that things are changing, and I think it's good. So
I'll just say one last thing, and we'll move on. But it's an unfortunate implosion. But with the whole sexual harassment awakening starting with Harvey Weinstein from last year, I'm sad that these people had to go through this BS from these terrible, disgusting people, but we needed something like this to happen so we can, like you said, have this gradual change within this industry.
It's been a really unfortunate, but it's been a wake up call.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a huge wake up call. So I'm hoping moving forward we can have great stuff from all different types of filmmakers. That's what's great about film and art. It is subjective. It is diverse. It's just all encompassing, just gathering from different cultures and stuff. That's what we love. And so I'm glad that last year saw a positivity in the all female led movies, because I don't know if I've ever seen as many inspirational photos from people posting of their kids going, look, my daughter really loves Wonder Woman, or my daughter's trying to be like Ray. It's that's kind of inspiring to you don't hear about those stories with little boys or whatever. So
I'll get into this. I guess I'll get into this now. I should have gotten into it later, but I don't know if you watched the Critics' Choice Awards, but there was a little anecdote that Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman, shared, which was that she had heard about this little boy who watched Wonder Woman, and then when it was over said, "I want to be a woman when I grow up," which is just great. I just love that. It's empowering people, and it's not just empowering little girls. So you can see that happening. It's great.
That's cool. I love that. So, all right, moving on. This is where Joel can get super nerd sweaty and basically get his glasses ready, push them up, and get as nerdy as possible, because I'm going to reveal the synopsis to you, and then he's going to go ahead and get all sweaty for you and describe it in full detail. So, speaking of scandals and stuff, this movie's also got some stink on it. Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, is coming out later this year. November 16th, as a matter of fact. Directed by the same director as the first one, David Yates, and the past 4 Harry Potter films. It's going to pick up where the last one left off. And, we talked about, some of the cast members that have been added and that photo that was released. And so, we're starting to see the ball rolling a little bit on this film. But, speaking of the stank on it, I don't know how it's going to do with the stank that is on it, but we'll see when it comes out. But the film synopsis has been revealed since it has wrapped up filming. And I'm just going to give you the kind of Cliff Notes version of it, because this is what I pulled up on Google. And then Joel will go into finer detail, and I will go to the bathroom because he'll be speaking for 2 hours. All right, so the synopsis for Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald states as this. Newt Scamander joins forces with young Albus Dumbledore to prevent the devious Gellert Grindelwald from raising pureblood wizards to rule all non-magical beings. Cool. I have nothing more to add to that except, this adds to the subtitle, just emphasizing that. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be some devastating stuff. We're going to really up the stakes in this one, which I love because, as I've told you guys, the first one, I like it. It was entertaining, but I'm glad this one's going to take it in more of a serious direction, more mature direction. That's why I appreciate, when I was watching the Harry Potter films, when they made that shift from Prisoner of Azkaban, from Chamber of Secrets, that maturity shift. That's what I like to see in these types of movies. So I'm cool with this. It sounds like it matches the movie quite well. So Joel, please school myself and all these other muggles that don't know anything about this franchise. What does this synopsis mean to you? Is there was there more to the synopsis that I missed?
No, not really. It seems like this is. I feel like we actually talked about this before, and I just had that feeling just now instead of when I was creating the notes. But nevertheless, Grindelwald and Dumbledore's story is sorted, to say the least, and I can't wait to see how that all wraps up. There's a dramatic past between them involving Dumbledore's sister and all that. It's crazy. It's the core of the conversation surrounding Dumbledore's sexuality is in this, and we might see at least a shade of that if they meet up. I don't feel like they are in this movie though. I feel like Dumbledore will probably somehow exit before it reaches the point where Grindelwald will be a menace. I am fascinated to find out where this movie goes, because we have 5 movies to get to a big fight between them, or a big duel, I should say, between them. That's going to be amazing to watch. I'm just fascinated because Jude Law is Dumbledore, and that's like perfect casting, and I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see who Jessica Williams plays. I think I mentioned that before, but yeah, I mean it's a great premise. I'm fascinated by the story as Dumbledore tells it in the last book. So, parts of it. He doesn't tell everything, but he tells parts of it, and I'm fascinated to see all the gaps filled in. But yes, the stink on it is Johnny Depp, who is back as Grindelwald, and between the time when we last talked and now, I believe, in the midst of all of this conversation surrounding sexual harassment and abuse, Johnny Depp has a history of domestic abuse with when he was living with Amber Heard, and she made this apology that was pretty weak. I thought I have no defense of that. I think that Amber Heard, they asked Amber Heard something about it. I can't really recall what she said. Felt like dismissive of the fact that Johnny Depp, has this kind of star back in his career because of stuff like this, where he was kind of finding himself in a Harry Potter cast where he had been mugging for years as Jack Sparrow and all of these other roles, and it's just a complicated thing. It definitely, as you said, it puts a stink on the movie. But we'll see. Obviously, there's going to be a fight between Potter fans wanting to see it and people not wanting to pay for a Johnny Depp movie. So we'll see how that turns out. But
so I have to ask you, because we were talking about this the last time we were talking about Fantastic Beasts 2, and I can guarantee you folks, so the more trailers come out and stuff, this is not the last time we're talking about this movie. And I know that makes Joel super excited. But didn't you mention that Grindelwald is almost kind of like a Hitler type of character, and this is almost like fascism, and with the pure blood wizards being like Nazis and stuff? Didn't you say it was kind of like equivalent to the Holocaust almost?
Yeah, pretty much. Not as systemic. There was no regime on his part, but certainly he was bad. I mean, he made Voldemort look friendly. It's
oh God.
It's yeah. Voldemort was more pure evil. This guy was considerate evil, I would say.
Oh, okay.
He liked to plan and plot, and we just saw a movie in which he was an active member of a government for a long period of time, long enough to gain some renown in his alternate ego, and then he's outed as a big villain in disguise, and that takes some planning and kind of fortitude to do that. So, and I don't think Voldemort would ever have any interest. He was more about getting in. He was only over really Europe, not Europe, the United Kingdom, and Grindelwald actually extended his reign well beyond that. He didn't come from England, but he's Eastern European, but he took over a lot of Europe in the process, killed many people, and specifically because of his obtaining the Elder Wand. So it's going to be interesting to see a villain who is a different. He's just a different villain than Voldemort. They're on different levels, and which makes it ironic because we see briefly we know that Voldemort ultimately kills Grindelwald. He does that in the 7th book, and we see it in the movie. I think actually no, the movie papers over it, but in the 7th book, Voldemort visits Grindelwald on his own search for the Elder Wand, and kills him along the way. And so it's an interesting dynamic of one of this new tyrant kind of killing off the old one, but they're in different leagues. Voldemort was seeking power and seeking a way to extend his power when his power was broken by trying to kill Harry, and then he was looking for a way to find ultimate power, but he never found it. Grindelwald was able to some degree, and it extended across the Atlantic. That was I think his attempt to try to take over the United States. So it's pretty fascinating.
Hey, listen, I will give them full props because I was not a fan of the first one, but man, this synopsis for this sequel sounds cool as hell, man. Because the first one is it's basically Newt going, I lost my little magical rodent. I gotta go find him throughout the sewers of New York. It's like, cool, fam. I don't give a shit. And so for this one, it's like, yeah, this sounds pretty interesting. And regardless of the whole scandal involving it, I do think it's going to be interesting to see if they do put it in this movie, see Jude Law and Johnny Depp interact as their characters. That's such perfect casting from both of their angles. I can't wait to see that. It's
definitely not going to be quirky.
No.
Yeah, because not. This is a very dramatic history between these characters, and I suspect that it was interesting to on their part to try to figure out because they're best friends in real life.
Yeah.
To figure out some sort of dynamic that they could work with as these these enemies who still somewhere deep they have this past that's not so clear cut as their present, which is enemies. It'll be fascinating. So, but we got to move on.
Correct. So the next story, this makes sense, but also kind of worries me, and I will get to that in just a second. But good old Ridley Scott. The guy's just been beaten down numerous times. 2017 was not a good year for him in any movie that he was associated with. That includes Alien Covenant, Blade Runner 2049, even that little movie Phoenix Forgotten, because it was forgotten, and of course All the Money in the World and Its Scandal. It's like that man has just not had a break this past year, but things are looking up for him because of his filmography and a certain movie that was made that kind of fits this genre. He is being looked at to possibly direct a Merlin saga for Disney. Now, this makes total sense because I didn't really care for the movie myself, but Ridley Scott has made a Robin Hood movie, and it's going to kind of have that same flavor in terms of the visual style and the overall epic nature to it. So this doesn't surprise me that he would be tapped to do this. Kind of going to follow in the same foot lines as how Guy Ritchie was tapped to do a King Arthur movie. It's like, it's going to kind of look like that almost. And so I'm okay with this. I'm curious. I need to see obviously a trailer or even just still images or something. But just to give you my quick recap on Robin Hood, it's boring. It like that movie makes me fall asleep every single time.
Robin Hood.
It's. I remember seeing it in theaters and I fell asleep numerous times. I tried to watch it again, and I don't know if it's just because of the pacing or whatever, but I could not get into it. But
it's the pacing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't know because I fell asleep through it. No, I think this is a good choice because I'm literally going off of the visual look of Robin Hood. If he can apply that to this Merlin saga, if he's going to do this, and makes it better with better pacing, I think this can be a good match. But unfortunately, I had to see a little bit more. So I'm just going to throw it over to Joel. I mean, you do not like Robin Hood, so do you think this is a good pick, or do you think they should go with someone else?
I really have no feelings. I basically just put it on the news because it was a big story. I hated Robin Hood. I think that looking like King Arthur isn't a good idea either. That movie looked awful. Certainly it makes sense because he's a guy who can, put up product very quickly and efficiently, as we just saw with him, reshooting 40% of a movie 6 weeks before it was supposed to come out. Certainly they're putting their confidence in someone who has a lot of people who have confidence in him, but I don't really feel anything. I don't think it's going to look like Robin Hood, to be honest. It's a Disney franchise, perhaps with their new affiliation with Fox, it'll be different, but they're gonna give it a different
which ironically look, Ridley Scott works a lot with 20th Century Fox with.
Yeah. Which that's certainly like an interesting new chapter for him to be working with Bob Iger and all the people over at Disney. It's it'll be interesting. We gotta see some stuff. Maybe I'll get excited for it because of that. But I'm like you. I gotta see stuff before I get any sort of excitement. The material is interesting. Certainly,
the material
Merlin.
Is rich with mythology and stuff. So I know that they can do a good product. But you're right with his previous
attempt to. Specifically because Robin Hood was adapted by Disney, it certainly makes sense that they would go to him.
Yeah.
They went to him once before, or Fox did, to do Robin Hood, but and so I guess it makes sense for them to go here. I just don't have any feelings right now.
So. Joel is completely numb. Please send that man a resuscitation because he needs it. So now, speaking of 20th Century Fox, this is a perfect lead-away into this because this is some shocking.
Yeah, that's why I put them in this order.
Yeah, exactly. So, see, Joel's getting better at it. He knows that the segues are the most important part of this entire podcast. All right, so speaking of 20th Century Fox, and just like what I said with Fantastic Beasts 2, there's also some stank on a certain movie, and it's like, there's no hope for any movie coming out this year, because if you have some stank on it, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'll get to that in just a second. But the 20th Century Fox news, this is this is some big stuff. And
oh yeah, I just realized what you were talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, but this shakeup that I'm about to tell you with their whole comic book division, this is directly in line with this merger and how they're going to shift everything, and it's just fascinating stuff. So let me run down everything really quick, and I'll give you my thoughts on every single one of them. Deadpool 2 is moving up to May 18th of this year, so moving up about a month or month to 3 week jump, and it's going to come out a week before Han Solo, and I'll get to that in just a second because that lineup is ridiculous for May alone. New Mutants was supposed to come out in a few months. I was getting excited for it. Forget it, because it's going to come out next year, February 22nd, 2019. The Gambit movie is moving from February 14th of next year to June 7th of next year. I still don't think that movie's going to even happen because they just lost their current director.
It doesn't exist. It's sort of like Sin City 2. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it just I don't even register it on my radar anymore. But according to this story, they still want to claim it as a movie that's coming out for the public, which it's not. All right, and the last thing is that there's also a Kitty Pryde spinoff that's going to come from, ironically, tying into Deadpool, the Deadpool 1 director. Okay, that's a lot to unpack, so let me just start off by saying this. The whole New Mutants thing, I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I was ready for it. That trailer was great. And this is a direct affliction from this merger, and I absolutely hate that. The Deadpool 2 thing is weird, because I get why they want to move it up, because it's Deadpool and it's a popular thing. But get this. It's coming out 2 weeks after Avengers Infinity War, and it's going to come out a week before Han Solo. Now, when this merger is all said and done, Deadpool will be a Disney product. Why are you sabotaging your other stuff? Like, it makes no sense to me. So that makes no sense whatsoever. Now, the stank on it is that T.J. Miller has been accused of, rape and, violent abuse. I'm talking, this is some of the worst stories I've heard.
Yeah, it's probably, I don't want to rank the stories, but certainly some of them have more physical, impropriety than others, and this is some of the worst stuff I've heard since all this stuff.
And so I'm going to bet you money on it that they're going to keep T.J. Miller in the movie, and Ryan Reynolds is going to ADR pretty much a hit in the groin.
Oh, man.
He's there's going to be a joke.
That would be such karmic justice.
Oh, it's going to happen.
Basically, they went to Ryan Reynolds and said, hey, so your best friend in the movie is a horrible, horrible, horrible person in real life. So you're gonna ADR a bunch of mimicry of him and just give him all different dialogue. That would be the most Deadpool thing to do in this situation.
And Joel, I am not a betting man, but I'm going to put $100 on this. And this is, January 14th, 2018. I'm calling this 5 months in advance, so I will be the first person online to say this. The joke is going to be said like this verbatim. He's going to look into the camera, and he's going to say, Christopher Plummer was not available, and we had to keep T.J. Miller. It's going to be said something like that. I'm not even joking.
He will absolutely do that. They will literally get him and say, hey, we got to refilm something real fast. So let's do that.
I'm telling you, it's going to happen. He's going to ADR that line. You can bet your ass on that. I'm calling it. All right, so moving on to the other stuff. Gambit, I don't care about. They've been pushing that movie. They're on their 5th director now looking for it. I stop trying to make it happen. Just like with Mean Girls, stop trying to make Gambit happen.
This has been in the works. This has been in the works since X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I know.
And people were like, oh man, Taylor Kitsch, I think?
Yeah.
Would be a great Gambit. And then people were thinking Channing Tatum, and then there were 16 other actors, and then they went back to Channing Tatum, and now he's apparently doing it. But I totally agree. This is never going to happen. There's people are tired of hearing about how it's going to happen. It's crossed over. It's crossed over into just people, not even movie people who follow this stuff. People know that a Gambit movie is coming out, and they're already tired of hearing about it. It's never going to happen.
And on a side note, that movie does not need to have a budget of $150 million. So
No,
stop.
it's a heist movie. Yeah, it's a heist movie. It's basically a heist movie.
As I will tell the whole world, 20th Century Fox and Gretchen Wieners, stop trying to make Gambit happen. It's not going to happen. Just stop it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to throw it over to you, Joel, because I want to get your whole input on this. But I think the most devastating thing out of this entire thing is not even Deadpool 2 moving up and pretty much sabotaging its own products. It's pushing New Mutants almost a year. Like, that's... Like,
yeah, here's what I feel happened. So I think that the first thing they realized, the first thing that happened was Gore Verbinski left Gambit.
Correct.
And then they realized, okay, well, we got to push it back because we don't have a director now. But also, it kind of makes more sense to have this in the summer because it's a heist movie and all that. They just felt like it had more of a summer feel anyway, so it was a blessing in disguise. And then they realized, well, okay, so that leaves kind of a gap between Dark Phoenix and Gambit, so we want to have something to fill that gap. And then they were like, well, okay, we don't want, we've kind of been acquired by Disney. We don't want to sabotage ourselves by opening Deadpool 2 after Han Solo, so we might as well open it before. But oh wait, now that means that the New Mutants will operate in the same international market as Deadpool 2. So, hey, look, we created a gap for ourselves. We might as well move this movie, The New Mutants. But yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate because it looks like, probably the best of them. The best of these movies are the one with the most potential to be really good of all of these movies. And yeah, it's an unfortunate kind of casualty, but something to look forward to next February. So,
I mean, I must reiterate that I'm not angry. I understand the business move. This is more of a selfish reason because Joel's right. Like, it was my most anticipated out of the three this year that Fox was going to give us, and it just kind of blows. That's all. It just sucks that we have to wait almost a whole year. Well, actually, from this point, it's a year.
More than a year.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So what about the whole Deadpool 2 situation? What do you think about that?
I feel like with that character, first of all, I'm calling it Untitled Deadpool sequel until we hear otherwise. Because I believe that that's the most Deadpool-like title for this thing. I think that it's the most tongue-in-cheek, and people are referring to it as that, and we would have an official title by now, I think. So, especially with the movie coming out. They have a great opportunity here, though, especially with such a mouthy character, to mock the situation a bit and make light of it in only the way that sarcasm can. We go to comedy to try to tickle ourselves about things that are not funny, and certainly this situation isn't. But I think that they have a great opportunity with this sardonic, sarcastic, character who makes fun of things that are taboo. To mock it in this way would be perfect for them to just ADR over every single line of dialogue that TJ Miller has. Maybe maybe make it a thing where like a running joke, even if they do the Christopher Plummer line, which I suspect they would. Do the thing where like all of TJ Miller's dialogue is like muffled, and Deadpool is like, I just for some reason I just can't hear what he's saying. I don't know, or something like that, to completely downplay his involvement, because at this point it's a big action movie. We don't know the degree to which TJ Miller is in there. It could be that there's stuff that they can't reshoot. So it's a lot it's a lot bigger scope than All the Money in the World was. It may be that Fox can't do what Sony did.
Joel, do you how would you feel? I'm not even like, what if they never addressed it, and every time when TJ Miller spoke, they actually hired Christopher Plummer to do ADR over his lines, and they don't ever mention it? That would be the funniest thing ever. That would be pretty funny. So,
and I think that Plummer is a good sport, and I feel like he would go for that.
He would totally do it. I think so.
So
So what do you think about them moving it literally a week before Han Solo, do you think that's devastating for that movie?
It could actually be a problem for Solo because I know that that's Star Wars, but it's interesting because Deadpool was a moneymaker, and Rogue One certainly made money, but I feel like the feeling about Solo is that we know everything about Han Solo already. It's not super interesting to find out his. Of course, we're assuming that they don't just like move it back to December at this point. Correct. Because they still could do that. It's January.
But if they do that, they're going to sabotage their own project with Aladdin. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just feel like there's some random move that's going to happen with that. It just doesn't feel like it's coming out in May. It doesn't feel like it because we haven't seen a trailer. We haven't seen a single inch of footage. So I don't know. To be honest
with you, they should just put it in the Deadpool 2 original spot.
Yeah, because there's nothing in there anymore, is there? I can't remember. Is there Ocean's 8, or is that the week after Deadpool was supposed to come out?
It might be the week after.
It might be. In which case, yeah, I guess they could push it back one more week. That way, they don't have these two gigantic event things with Avengers, being in May as well. And you're right, it's a crazy lineup. Then again, Deadpool 2 being across from Slenderman makes sense. It's good, opposite market. That weekend felt empty to me, so it's good that they took advantage of it. Whereas on either side of the original Deadpool date, there's big stuff coming out. So it could have been that Deadpool 2 was going to be swallowed up, and now it won't be. But now the question is, what happens to Solo? Because all of that stuff's very, very interesting. So
yeah, so whatever happens, I do not envy the person that's got to schedule this stuff because you got a lot of work ahead of you. All right, so the next piece of news, which is very fantastic. So last week, Joel and I talked about our top 5 or top 10 most anticipated movies of this year, and both of us, right? Or
yes.
Was it just you?
No, you had it at number 10.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you had it higher. All right, so
yeah, I had it at number 3.
So we both had Barry Jenkins' follow-up to Moonlight, which was If Beale Street Could Talk. We're both looking forward to that. I don't care what that man does; he can do whatever he wants, and I will support him because Moonlight was a masterpiece for the ages. Now, there's another story that's coming out that he's going to work with Black Panther himself, Chadwick Boseman, to do a thriller called, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, and Joel's going to snicker and laugh, but whatever, I'm going to try, Expatriate. So, yeah. It's a thriller that is based on a 1970s plane hijacking. That's not even the fascinating part with them two working together. I had no idea Chadwick Boseman can write. Apparently, the script is done by him and one of his writing partners, Logan Coles. So that's cool. I had nothing more to say. It's a great team up. I think Chadwick Boseman gets treated unfairly with his smaller movies. I think he's a very talented individual, and all the movies I've seen with him in it that is not associated with his Black Panther character, he's really good in. I didn't really care for Marshall that much, but he was really good in that movie, and so was Josh Gad. And the acting was not a problem with that movie; it was everything else. But I like this. I like this team up. With Barry Jenkins doing more of a thriller, I think that totally makes sense because even though Moonlight is more of a coming-of-age romance movie, that movie is so emotionally intense. I think if you can apply that type of logic and editing to a thriller, then Barry Jenkins is a total match for it. So I had nothing more to say. I'm super excited. I'm excited for this. I'm excited for If Beale Street Could Talk. The guy is just a genius, and I am interested to see how the script is because I did not know Chadwick Boseman is a writer. So I guess he's a writer now. So Joel, I'm assuming this is like probably the worst piece of news to happen this week.
Absolutely. It's terrible. No. As the kids say today, hook it into my veins. I cannot wait for anything that Barry Jenkins directs. He could direct a literal adaptation of a phone book, and I would go see it. I don't know what that would be, but he would make it work.
It would win the Oscar.
I actually just realized that that joke doesn't really make any sense because I don't know what a literal adaptation of a phone book is. Um, in any case, yeah, I'm so excited for this. I mean, he's moving from this queer coming of age story to a James Baldwin adaptation of sort of a social message crime picture, and now he's going to do a real life historical thriller based on a real event. I don't know what that event is. I the only things that I've seen are that it's based on a hijacking in the 1970s of a plane. I don't know what plane. I don't know what happened. I assume it involves some sort of expatriate who is a person who has defected from his country. So I don't know. It's interesting to see him move so wildly between genres, and I can't wait because if he knocks If Beale Street Could Talk out of the park, and then he knocks Expatriate out of the park, this guy can do anything.
Yeah.
And I've had that feeling since I saw Moonlight. I just felt like there was a natural intuition here that was difficult to shake. And it didn't matter that he was working in sort of one space. It was such brilliant direction that I felt it could be applied to really anything. And I feel like he has a specific, I already feel like he has a specific visual sensibility that he's going to be able to mine over this great career. I'm feeling that this guy's going places. Even if he didn't win Best Director, his movie won Best Picture. That gets him a lot of clout, and so he really has first pick from now on. And I love this team up as well. Boseman is a fine actor and a great screen presence, and so I'm excited that they're teaming up.
How do you feel about him writing a script? Because Chadwick has never expressed interest in it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't seem like that's where his career was going. I'm glad it is, though. It's very interesting to note that he wrote this. I didn't know that actually until you say that. I had missed that somewhere along the way. So that's
I'm just reading the Hollywood Deadline article, and it says Barry Jenkins direct to attach with Chadwick to star, and then it says Boseman wrote the script with his writing partner Logan Coles.
Wow. Okay, that's very interesting. Well, that's certainly adds another layer of interest to it.
Yeah.
We'll see what he does with his first we know about screenplay. So certainly interesting. All right, so I'm gonna take this last bit of news, and it's really just a quick recap of.
All right, you go for it, and I can't wait to discuss it afterwards because there's just one thing I want to say after you say everything, but I'll let you go for it.
Okay, so pretty much in the last week, we've had two major awards or three major awards bodies speak out, in terms of nominees and winners and all that. Two of them were award shows. There was the Golden Globes last Sunday. Don't want to, overestimate the power of the Golden Globes. It's certainly an awards body, but it doesn't mean anything toward the Oscars. Trust me when I say voters really don't pay attention to this. Maybe this year a little more so because it took place before voting ended, but still I don't feel like they have major, predictive qualities. But nevertheless, it really is starting to look good for Guillermo del Toro for Best Director. I'm going to get into that a little more next week because that's my final Oscar update. But it really feels like Del Toro is headed toward a win. He won at the Golden Globes, and he won at the Critics' Choice, and he was nominated by the DGA. So all in the last week, it's certainly great news for him. So also interesting to note is that Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, despite the backlash against it, seems to be coming up in the awards race. It's a very interesting thing to watch because there are a lot of people who are complaining about the racial undertones of the story and how much the movie avoids, supposedly avoids dealing with that element. I don't think it's the critical element of the movie. personally, and I don't know if there's so much that needs to be put on that. But in any case, it doesn't seem to be worrying a lot of people, a lot of awards bodies in this race this season, because it's really showing up in a lot of places. McDonough was also nominated as at the DGA, so that was a big thing that happened. I feel like the 4 winners across the dramatic acting categories and the supporting categories, which were Gary Oldman, Frances McDormand, Sam Rockwell, and Allison Janney, are probably our winners at the Oscars, to be completely honest. And they also won at the Critics' Choice Awards, all 4 of those. In fact, it felt like the Critics' Choice for much of the show was just repeating all of the Golden Globe winners, because with the exception... No, yeah, so Martin McDonagh, I believe, won correct... Let's see. Screenplay...
I believe he won, right?
I believe so. Oh, wait, is there a screenplay award at the... Anyway, whatever the case.
You're talking about the Golden Globes, right?
The Golden Globes, he won. Martin McDonagh won, but I can't remember if there was a screenplay award. Anyway, whatever the case, he won at the Golden Globes, and it feels like that's probably where the Oscars are headed too. He's been winning a lot on this circuit. So, although Greta Gerwig has won several as well, so hopefully, I'm personally hoping that's how it turns out to be. But and then we had Saoirse Ronan and James Franco won the lead actor in musical or / comedy awards, and then really nothing else about the Golden Globes was notable in terms of the winners, but the whole show I thought was surprisingly entertaining. I almost skipped it this year because I've been tired of the Golden Globes, but the Time's Up, basically it being timed up with the Time's Up movement, made it really entertaining, because they really left no prisoners in terms of the jokes that they were cracking about all of this stuff, the people involved in it, mocking Kevin Spacey relentlessly almost for the entire show. They got a lot of great material out of that. Seth Meyers was a really good host, I thought. I hope that he comes back. There were a couple of things, it's always questionable when Seth Meyers makes a racial joke, and he did in the show toward Daniel Kaluuya, who, as one person put it, certainly tolerated the joke. But it wasn't very funny. Nevertheless, other than that, he was a really good host. It was a really it was a very clean show. It went almost exactly 3 hours, which doesn't always happen with these awards shows. So I was happy to see that. But it was just really good. There was a lot of passion in the speeches, and it was really entertaining. And then the Critics' Choice, those shows are never about the entertainment value. It's really about the awards. Olivia Munn hosted and did a solid job. There were a lot of the same winners, so not much to recap, but she did make a crack about T.J. Miller having hosted several of those awards in the past, and that went over well. So in any case, it was an interesting week for awards season, because it feels like finally there are a series of consensus categories. Finally, it's been a fairly fluid season, except until this last week, and going off of that, we had the DGA nominated 5 directors for feature films. There was Guillermo del Toro for The Shape of Water, Greta Gerwig for Lady Bird, Martin McDonagh for 3 Billboards, Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk. Speaking of which, so Christopher Nolan and Dunkirk, the movie, are very much still in the conversation. People tend to think that they aren't because they came out earlier in the year, but especially Dunkirk.
Yeah, but Get Out came out in February and it's getting recognition, so I don't want to hear that excuse.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of one of the exceptions, though. It's certainly a movie that we needed last year. It feels like it's a movie that says a lot about racial stuff going on in the country, and in an exaggerated, very I think it's a comedy. I know there are a lot of people who don't, but it's in a very like devilishly funny but also serious way. Um, and it's interesting because people seem to be discounting Dunkirk because it's kind of disappeared into the season, but I feel like the Academy is going to go for this more than some of the awards bodies have in the last month. It feels like an Oscar thing more even than Get Out does to me. But we will see. And they also nominated, of course, some directors for first-time feature film awards, including Jordan Peele again. They double nominated him this year because Get Out was his directorial debut. And they also nominated Jeremy Jasper for Patty Cakes, William Oldroyd for Lady Macbeth, Taylor Sheridan for Wind River, and the saddest of them all, to me, Aaron Sorkin for Molly's Game, which I thought that was a weak, very weak movie. I didn't like that movie at all. And I felt like
it's one of the weakest directorial debuts I've seen in a while.
Yeah, and there were no women in this category. I don't think wait. So I'm gonna check something while I talk randomly. I think that perhaps in any case, I don't think that there were any women nominated in this category, and you'd think that in this year where there's been several female directors make their first movie, that they would nominate one of them. Of course, Greta Gerwig, people have been kind of getting mad, but Greta Gerwig has directed before, so it wouldn't count in this category because she co-directed a movie and had some sort of authority or authorship over it, I should say. But nevertheless, it's a debut of some sort, and I feel like they could have made an exception there just because, I don't know, because I want it to happen. There we go. But yeah, I haven't seen two of these, Patty Cakes and Lady Macbeth. I missed, so I'm gonna definitely have to catch up with those. In any case, that's basically the news, guys. There wasn't a whole lot. There was a lot of movement, but like all of it at the same time. There wasn't a lot of specific nuance to talk about.
So I have to bring up the one thing that's kind of the elephant in the room, once again tying to sexual harassment. I always believe in the justice system. I believe, finding hard evidence and, not killing someone's career from allegations and everything until you have evidence to back up your claims. But do you think with the allegations between, the 5 women and Franco, do you think his chances at an Oscar now are completely diminished?
Sadly, no, because Casey Affleck won Best Actor, and he had that kind of, and that was well known by then. He had that kind of baggage too. So, I don't think so. I think that certainly it casts an unfortunate light on him, but obviously, Gary Oldman's going to win. And Gary Oldman has, domestic abuse history, so it's just everybody's crappy.
The moral of the story is everyone's batted.
Yes,
I'm 50-50 on it.
Basically, I was reminded that we're 2 years removed from Alan Rickman's death, and I was
before we started recording, my girlfriend actually brought that up that Mr. Rickman has been gone for 2 years. So we live in a crazy time where time keeps progressing so fast that Joel and I keep forgetting that we're aging.
It's crazy, and out of paranoia, I was like, "Oh no," now that there's been a lot of these stories coming out, and I was just like, man, I was like possessed by paranoia. Is there something about Alan Rickman? So I did a little bit of research, and I literally searched Alan Rickman controversies because that's probably the quickest way. So but nothing. Like he is the least problematic person ever to have lived on the planet Earth. I'm convinced of that.
It's like the same way with Elijah Wood. It's like they're just so clean. It's like there's
Yeah.
nothing bad about them.
I mean, instead of finding controversies, I found stories of his philanthropy and his generosity.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
his goodness, and we did not deserve him.
No, we didn't.
So I'm just reminded of that. Gary Oldman is an actor that I greatly admire, but he has, a history of abusive drunkenness, and so there's skeletons in everybody's closet. It's unfortunate with the James Franco thing, though. I mean, he didn't really have a chance for me. Certainly, he's going to be nominated, but in terms of the win, it's Oldman's to lose. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
It is what it is. All right. But speaking of the news, to kind of wrap it up, I mean, what was your favorite thing that dropped this week?
Oh, probably the Barry Jenkins.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's really
it probably was me being sarcastic.
Well, I mean, like you said, if Barry Jenkins can do literally even if he did a commercial, I'd be like, wow, that's the most impressive news I've heard this week is him doing a Toyota commercial.
And he's also being very influential, because there's this music video for, and I think I sent it to you. I don't know if you ever watched it, but is for I forget the number, but it's a song named after the number for the suicide prevention hotline by Logic. And the style, I mean, it wasn't Barry Jenkins who directed it, but you can tell that they watched Moonlight probably 6 times before they directed the video to get some sort of like ideas about visual cues and all that. It's very much reminiscent, and so you can feel that Barry Jenkins is having his style being borrowed by other directors. It's fascinating to see that happen.
Yeah. And just a quick side note before we jump into the trailers, follow Barry Jenkins on Twitter. He's an absolute delight.
Yes.
Yeah, so jumping into the trailers now, I'm so glad that Joel and I are friends, because he always looks out for me. It's like, if just like in the beginning of This Is the End, if there was a hole that opened up in the earth and I was David Krumholtz and I was like hanging off of the cliff, I feel like Joel would reach out his hand, grab my hand, and pull me out from doom, right? Like, he's a good friend. Until he makes the notes for our episode, he throws me under the bus, and he assigns me the worst trailers that he knows are going to agitate me, because he's such a great friend. All right, so the first trailer is... I
love you, Chase.
I know. I love you too, buddy. All right, so the first trailer we're going to talk about, unfortunately, is... and I'm going to say it in this exact tone of voice, and it matches completely because it's the name of the movie.
Oh, God.
Mamma Mia... Here we go again. All right, so
I thought you were gonna sing it, but okay.
Oh, hell no! All right, so this is the sequel, the awaited sequel, I guess, to the beloved hit Mamma Mia that has stars in it that just look like they're confused to be there. I'm gonna be full disclosure. I've never seen the first one, nor do I care to see it. And yes, I have listened to ABBA songs. I know that these songs exist, so I'm not just some person that just shuts out everything from the music. I don't care. I watched this trailer. It just made me weep that Lily James is in this, because it's like when you see her in something as awesome as Baby Driver, you're like, oh, wow, she's going to go places. Oh, wow, she went places. I don't care. It's a prequel. The first one, to put it lightly, like I said, I've never seen it, so I'm going off the trailer. Meryl Streep had sex with a bunch of people, and she just had no idea who the baby daddy was, and so the whole time she was trying to figure out who boinked her, and she was singing songs to do that. For the sequel, we have Meryl Streep going, wow, I boinked a lot of people. You guys want to know about my childhood? Here you go. I just don't care. Joel, take it away. It's just the trailer is so bad and cheesy. I'm just like, I'm done with this.
I have this new goal, because I'm probably going to be seeing this movie. It's the other wide release that weekend. And so I have this goal to see the first movie or the previous movie if it's part of a franchise and I've missed one, or if it's a sequel or prequel or whatever. So I will be seeing the first one in mid-July sometime or whatever. This comes out July 20th. Yeah. So I didn't see it. That weekend was all about The Dark Knight and strangely
I
Space
remember
Chimps.
that.
And strangely Space Chimps. So I didn't see the first one. It didn't look interesting to me. As soon as I heard that Pierce Brosnan had a voice, apparently like he was singing through a blender that was blending of an air conditioner. I don't know. I heard some like really colorful adjectives to describe his singing voice. I just was like, yeah, no. So whatever. Moving on.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing really more to say.
Nice.
If you're a fan of the movie, like you'll probably like this. I have never seen the first one, so I can't really even comment on this trailer.
Right, yeah, exactly. There's not much to comment. It's just a big trailer, so we have to talk about it to some degree. But that's what's nice is we have a bunch of trailers, and like at least 3 of them, there's really nothing to talk about. This is actually the next one where there's not really much to talk about because we don't really get a sense of what it's about or anything, but it's called Mortal Engines. It's comes from Peter Jackson in the producer sense. He's presenting this new big sci-fi epic that sort of looks like Howl's Moving Castle meets Mad Max meets a young adult franchise of your choice. We just basically see like part of an action scene here, and I gotta say, pretty impressive visual effects. I'm impressed by that. I'm not surprised because it's Peter Jackson, but we just kind of see this like big house thing that is also moving across a bunch of rugged terrain very quickly, and then an even bigger house thing on wheels comes up behind them, and then like attaches itself with an anchor or a spear or a whatever, the harpoon, I guess it's a big harpoon. And then it just kind of is introducing us to the vibe of the action spectacle. And I gotta say, I kind of dug what we see. I just wish we knew what this movie was about. I haven't ever read the book. I think it's based on a book. I'm not sure. So what did you think of this little tease?
Okay, so when we kind of evolve this podcast, I want to kind of implement new things and kind of have more surprises. So I want to implement the first ever, and this is live by the way, I haven't even told Joel this, the first ever, if we see a teaser trailer to a movie, we can pick said movie, and we only get one pick throughout the entire year, to where when the main trailer drops, we don't talk about it. Because I actually love this teaser so much that I want to go into this movie blind, by the way. Like, I don't want to know anything about it because, like you said, it's such a great action setup to the visual look to it, the CGI, and the overall vibe to it, to where I was teased. It's perfect. It's a perfect little teaser to get you into this world. You are so right. When you're watching the trailer, it's almost like if Peter Jackson, who is the man behind the Lord of the Rings saga, made a Mad Max movie. Like, that's exactly what it is.
For kids.
Yeah.
For kids. It's very much a YA feel. Where the person there that we see that's actually looking through like an eye device that reminds in the shot setup of Mad Max. Mm-hmm. There's a similar shot from Immortan Joe that it reminded me of. It very much has that feel of a constant chase.
Which is great. So, like, Joel, if you're cool with it, I would like to implement this. I don't want to even cover the trailer when it comes out. I want to go into this blind because the only way that I'm going to see this, and it's a good idea, the only way that I'm going to see this is accidentally. If I accidentally see it in front of a movie, the further trailer. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't avoid.
Yeah,
that.
we can't choose that. But I guess we could like track, when the trailer's coming out, and then just stand outside of the movie or whatever until the movie starts.
People are just like, are you okay? Like, do you know where the bathroom is at? It's like, no, I'm just avoiding the Mortal Engines trailer.
It's a really solid teaser, and it's a great choice to make because it gets your interest going.
Correct.
But I will be. Of course, what I meant was by find out what it's about was more. I want to see this movie than I want to see another trailer. I just want to know some sort of premise, but also finding out the premise by watching the movie is always fun. So
exactly. And just one final thing on Peter Jackson. Like, I've always admired the man. the same way I admire James Cameron, they're always pushing the limits visually. Like, I don't know how they do some of this stuff in terms of visual effects, but they know how to push the limits and really make stuff that's jaw-dropping and stuff that we've never seen before. Like, it's amazing work. So, yeah, you're right. Great teaser. Good stuff. Once again, Joel hates me. The next trailer is the Nutcracker in the Four Realms. Now, I know that Joel's looking forward to this, so I'm just going to say my piece about this and I'll shut up. I don't care. This is from Disney. This is a Alice in Wonderland looking movie that's going to incorporate the Nutcracker, music. And I just, besides the Jungle Book and to some extent the first Alice in Wonderland, I really don't care about any live adaptation from Disney. And I was so burned by Beauty and the Beast. Good for it for making a lot of money, but Joel and I are on the same page with that. I just do not like that adaptation whatsoever, and I don't know why it made so much money, but I don't trust them. Maleficent didn't really care for. Didn't see the second Alice in Wonderland. I don't know. It looks hokey. It looks like it's going to appeal to a mass audience, but in terms of appealing to me, it's not my style of movie. In terms of like a fashion design and production design, beautiful, gorgeous. I have no qualms with that aspect of the movie, but in terms of actual interest, I do not care, even though I'm a huge fan of the Nutcracker type of music. I don't know if you guys know this, but I was in band from 6th grade to freshman in high school, so I am very acknowledgeable of like classical music, and I love the orchestral nature of the Nutcracker theme song. It just gets you into that mood. It's warm, it's inviting. So I appreciate the stylings, I guess, of taking that music and applying it to that type of movie. Cool, just not for me. But on a visual level, it looks okay. But I know Joel really liked this trailer, so please shoot me down and tell me why you are looking forward to this.
It's so for my money, and Chase is going to wonder what's wrong with me when I say this, but there are 2 good trailers this week. Trailers, I should add, like as in terms of pieces of editing, and this is one of them. Mortal Engines was the other, so it's all kind of downhill from here. This is my favorite. This is my favorite of the 2. But I just think it looks really like I barely remember anything about the trailer, to be completely honest. It's been a month since it came out. It was one of those that we were kind of stuck in a rut of like things happening, and we weren't able to record on Sunday, and so we had to record on Fridays pretty much. So I barely remember like details. I just remember being swept into like this big magical world. I think it looks stunning in terms of the production design and all of that. That's basically what I remember here, honestly. So I just think it looks fun. I'm not, it comes out the same day as X-Men Dark Phoenix, which I think is a really weird decision because now that Disney has kind of looped in Fox, they're competing with themselves, which I don't know. It's very interesting, unless it moves, of course, in which case it won't be. But yeah, I just think it looks really fun and visually spectacular, and I love the Nutcracker story, so I'm excited for that. So our next trailer, I know that I just mentioned that there are only 2 good ones, and so our next trailer, people are going to be like, "What? You don't want to see this movie?" No, I want to see this movie because the cast is amazing, but the trailer was just weird and awkwardly edited to me, and it's Ocean's 8, which looks like so much fun. It definitely looks like Gary Ross is, essentially trying to remake Ocean's 11 just with 8 women. It's the same. It's a very similar type of heist story. It has a very similar visual look. The cast is really interesting. There's like, was it like Cate Blanchett, Sandra Bullock, help me out here. Oh, Anne Hathaway,
Mindy Kaling, Rihanna.
Yeah, Rihanna, this rapper named Aquafina.
Yeah,
Which is
that's her
great.
actual name, by the way. Joel's not
Yeah,
making that up.
yeah. And then yeah, Rihanna, like you said, it's a great cast. I'm excited for it on those terms. I just felt like as a piece of editing, the trailer was weird and awkward, and so for that, I'm not quite as excited as I feel like I should be because the job of trailers is to make you excited. But in any case, it was just kind of disappointing to me, at least from an editorial standpoint. So, what was your takeaway from it?
I completely agree. Listen, the cast is not the problem.
Yeah.
The director, kind of a problem. I didn't really care for the first Hunger Games. I thought that series actually picked up with
Well,
the second one.
yeah, that was certainly his like job of working with the studio, but he did Seabiscuit back in the day, and
Yeah,
I,
so I'm
I
saying,
thought
like,
that was
I'm not saying like his past stuff, but like his most current thing that he just did. It's not a good transition when it's like, oh, what was the last thing you did? Hunger Games. Oh, okay. Okay, so the actual trailer, here's where the issue lies. And Joel completely nailed it on the head. Is the editing of the trailer. When you have a heist movie or any type of thriller, suspense, those three genres require the movie to have such tight-aired editing. Like, it needs to be precise, and it needs to have a certain rhythm to it, and needs to have a good pace. So if your trailer is any indication of your movie and it's edited poorly or awkwardly, then I'm going to assume your movie is going to be like that in its full form. So for me, it didn't really work in terms of the way it was put together. The way it started out was weird. The humor was awkwardly placed. Didn't really have any heist action sequences that were exciting. It was such a weird way to kind of display your movie, because this movie is supposed to be a big hit for the studio. So you want to have a good trailer to come out. For a heist movie that's supposed to have really good editing, this did not portray it that well. So I'm not really looking forward to it, to be honest with you. It's just, I'm kind of conflicted because I do like the cast. I want to see a good heist movie because heist movies are fantastic when they're done well. But this trailer did not get me excited for it. So, my expectations are lessened a little bit, but maybe the next trailer will turn that around for me. Speaking of trailers, to where when we first heard the idea, I didn't really care for, because I love the first one. I'm like, why do we need a sequel? But you know what? When you deliver a good trailer in front of me, I'm going to change my tune. And that's exactly, like, I'm sure Joel's shaking his head with Sicario 2 Soldado, which is translation to Hitman. Okay, so the first Sicario, when it came out in 2015, was a complete, surprise. Now, it wasn't a surprise to me because of the director. It was just more of a surprise because I just kept getting surprised that this director kept hitting, balls out of the park or whatever. Because before, Denis Villeneuve, all he did was Enemy and Prisoners. And so from those two movies, which I really love, I still was hesitant because I didn't really know his track record. It's like, I don't know how he's going to be. But now we know where Denis Villeneuve is of today in 2018. He's one of the best out there. So, leaving Sicario, I was like, man, this guy hit another home run. Taylor Sheridan, who I'd never heard of, wrote a fantastic, script. And then, he did well with Hell or High Water. Didn't really care for Wind River, but that's a different story. He's still, I think, a solid writer. So this movie had everything going for it. Benicio del Toro was excellent. Josh Brolin, Emily Blunt. And speaking of editing, the first Sicario was so well edited. It just made you feel so uncomfortable throughout the entire thing. And, it just kept your interest there. And the cinematography was gorgeous by Roger Deakins. It was just a movie that hit. So when I heard about a sequel, I was like, why are we doing this? And why are we doing this without Emily Blunt? It was just so weird. But you know what? I love this trailer. The trailer completely captures the tone and the spirit of the first one. It's more of the same, but it's done well. And it looks like Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro are going to have, once again, great chemistry on screen, going back and forth, because del Toro was terrifying in the first one. So if we can kind of capture that magic in this one, then we're good. It looks like he's going to bring his A game because I'm telling you, that one shot of him gunning down that corrupt dude and shooting the gun like that, I've never seen that on film in terms of a way a hitman shoots a gun. It was done in such a fresh take that I was like, this is perfect. Of course, we're not going to have the same people coming back in terms of Emily Blunt or Deakins or Villeneuve, so I get it. It's not going to have that same touch as the first one, but I'm still looking forward to it because it was a trailer that excited me. And Josh Brolin, this guy, within a month, is going to have Infinity War, Deadpool 2, and now Sicario 2 within 30 days of each other, and that's pretty exciting. So that guy's career is going to have a nice little spike within the summer of this year. But I love this trailer, so I would like to know Joel's take on it, his hot take as to why he thought this was not a good trailer. And the only reason I'm saying that is because he just even admitted after the Nutcracker trailer it goes downhill from here. So why do you hate this trailer?
Yeah, pretty much like every trailer for me gets worse. Well, actually, that's not true. Doesn't get worse. Anyway, all right. So I just think this looks generic. I'm just, the thing where he shoots the guy like way too many times was pretty neat. Shooting the gun that way was neat. Like it was a machine gun or something. But it just doesn't look necessary. You're removing the one female character that was interesting about the first story. She was the protagonist of the story, and now you're removing her from that dynamic, and it just doesn't work for me. And anyway, and just the story just looks like they went from this interesting study of the this nihilistic study of the drug world to treating the Del Toro character as a protagonist, which is super weird. So I don't know. It's just generic to me, and a bit disappointing. But
you know what? I was prepared to yell at you, but that is fair enough because it does look like a generic, unnecessary movie. But the trailer was so well put together that I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess as an editing, experiment, it was solid. It certainly ramps up tension nicely. It just misplaced, I think. But in any case, it's way better than our next trailer. Our next three trailers are pain. Okay. So guys, I never thought that the day would come that I would have to sit here and explain to you guys the origin of an internet creepypasta meme called the Slenderman. But here I am, sitting in 2018, having to do that. So, Chase, are you very aware of the Slenderman? Like, how aware are you of it?
I am fully aware and fully conscious to tell you that it is weird to see this trailer after knowing it started out as a creepypasta, then becomes a game, then becomes a meme, then becomes a horrifyingly true story of two little girls trying to murder their classmate because of this creepypasta, and now we're here with a piece of entertainment. Yeah. So Joel, take it away.
This movie's existence is one of the most weird, problematic things I've come across in a long time. Okay, in some world, maybe told with sincerity and caution, the story that came from this, the thing that you just talked about, the attempted murder by two young classmates of their best friend, supposedly, it could have been a vital story to tell. But instead, they decided to cheapen it by making a movie where it's just this generic horror story where the Slender Man is played by the guy who played Mama, Javier Botet. And basically this has come from various legends. Serial killers in the past have referred to the Slender Man as this figure they saw that haunted them. So there's an interesting, like, mythical nature to the Slender Man that's very interesting. And then it became this, as you said, this creepypasta meme that basically kind of just caused a lot of empty paranoia, and then fueled the fire for this attack that happened. So beyond that, though, this movie looks awful. Like it just looks. I have no idea what's going on in the trailer. It's the most haphazardly edited trailer in a long time. I don't know what like the editor of the trailer was trying to accomplish. Was it trying to build scares? Was it trying? I don't know, because it goes all over the place. It never settles on a single like visual idea of trying to sell us on this movie. And the movie itself it just looks cheap and pointless and just dumb. And it's not even the worst trailer of the week, but there you go. I'll get to that later. But yeah, are you pretty much in the same boat as me?
Okay, so I'm going to publicly announce this on this episode of the podcast. I have a love-hate relationship with Sony, and I'm fully comfortable with admitting that. Because then sometimes they'll, pump out some really good stuff, some decent stuff, and then some really horrid stuff. This falls into the horrid camp. Now, if you want to make an entertaining movie based on this creepypasta, I get it, because creepypasta is an entertaining storytelling forum. I get that. But Joel is correct. It's got this, stigma on it with the actual murder that happened, which, by the way, if you want to see that documentary that is on HBO, it's called Beware the Slender Man. I watched it. It was an okay documentary. I thought they could have gone a little bit more into other stuff, but as a documentary, it's creepy, it's chilling. But in terms of the actual trailer, because I'm not going to comment on, the Slender Man's history, I just want to talk about the trailer. Joel is completely right. My God, I don't know who edited this together, but it's almost like someone from Sony whispered into someone's ear, make it like The Ring. Like, and
or they just happens. They just put it in this like artificially intelligent trailer generator, and then put like 20 minutes of the movie into it, and then it just randomly generated this trailer.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Here's the deal. I will give it some credit and say the visual imagery, while haphazardly put in there, was cool, I guess. I mean, if you're going for like the Ring style of type of horror, I'm cool with that because I like the first Ring. But that's all the credit I'll give it for, because it's edited poorly. It's just jumping all over the place, literally inserting creepy imagery in between shots, which make no sense. Even though on a visual level, it can be slightly striking in the horror sense, but it doesn't make any sense for the movie or the trailer. And the way the movie or the trailer ends, I was like, okay. Like, it's the type of movie or trailer that plays, it's cut awkwardly, and then when it ends, you're like, okay. I mean, this is obviously appealing to 12 or 13-year-olds that want to go take their dates and make out in the theater with, but as a horror fan, this does nothing for me. So, it is what it is. But Joel is right. It's not the worst one.
I will be seeing it, and actually, because of a new kind of scheduling thing that we're starting this year, I will probably be offering an extra review of this because it comes out the weekend of Deadpool. So this will be the thing that I talk about separately from Deadpool, and I guess we'll explain that later on. But yeah, I'll be seeing this. It'll be interesting to sit in a theater and watch this. I can't imagine like the girl, talking about the extracurricular stuff real fast again. Like, what is the girl who was attacked? What is she thinking now? I just have to. She's, I think, 16 or so now, and I just have to think that it's just so weird to know that a movie like this is coming out. 4 years after.
I got to be honest with you, like, just growing up with the birth of this creepypasta up until now, the Slender Man, ghost story had such a transformation that it's one of the most iconic things in the past, 10 years, believe it or not, just because it's evolved from this little campfire ghost story on the internet to where we're at now. And it's like, what is happening? So, it is what it is, but it's definitely not the worst horror trailer to come out this week. I know. No, shocking enough.
It's not.
All right, so the next trailer is just a teaser, and it is from a TV show that a lot of people hate, but I guess it's popular enough to have a movie, and it's called Teen Titans Go to the movies. Boy, what a clever title. All right, so the teaser trailer is basically the announcer breaking fourth wall, the characters breaking fourth wall, and then there's a fart joke. Okay, cool. All right, so if you don't know what the Teen Titans Go show is about, it is basically a bastardized kid version of cotton candy colored imagery thrown up on screen to completely diminish the popular, I have not seen it, but it is regarded as a good show like Batman Beyond amongst fans with Teen Titans. And so Teen Titans Go is basically like the Powerpuff Girls version of it in terms of animation style, and it's kind of dumbed down. Now, it's a DC product, so, they're coming out with this year, amongst Aquaman and wow. Okay. All right, so with this trailer, I get what they're going for. They want to make it like a Lego Batman movie where they want to have like tongue-in-cheek humor, breaking fourth wall, but the problem is Lego Batman movie is far superior because of the attention to detail and the care that they have on the product versus this, which seems like they're just cramming something out because they want to make money super fast on a property that I guess is popular with kids. I don't know. I don't watch the show, but the trailer itself is just dumb. The animation styling it can be cool, I guess, on kind of like that, awkward Adventure Time regular show type level, but other than that, I have nothing more to say. The humor didn't work for me. The breaking of the fourth wall, I mean, we've already got Deadpool. Like, why do we need that in kids form? And like I said, we just had the Lego Batman movie from the same company nonetheless. So it's so weird. And I have a feeling this is, Warner Brothers caught wind 2 years ago of probably Sony wanting to make an animated Spider-Man movie. They wanted to take a crack at it, and so now we're here having 2 animated superhero movies in the same year. Actually 3 if you count The Incredibles 2. So I don't care about this. It's probably going to go well with kids, but I have never seen this show or the actual Teen Titans, so I can't comment. But just watching the trailer, it just looks like someone, Willy Wonka, ate a bunch of cotton candy and threw it up on screen, and whatever. Joel, what do you have to say? That's a great way to put it, actually.
Basically, I mean, this is a movie where there's an extended fart joke where
that powers the trailer, by the way. That's the only scene in the trailer.
That is the only scene in the trailer. The only actual scene we can guess from the movie. The other stuff is them like making fun of the fact that Aquaman can have a movie, and everybody loves Wonder Woman because why not say that, I guess?
Because once again, it's very awkward DC to have the same company make fun of an Aquaman movie when their own Aquaman movie is coming out months later. That makes no sense to me.
It does not make any sense. Yeah, it just looks cheap and lame and whatever. So, our last trailer, that's pretty much all we can say. I've never seen a single second of the show. I will see this. This will be another thing that I extra review because it comes out the weekend of Mission Impossible 6, July 27th. So, all right, guys. This is one that I think because of our let me see here. So I think because of our scheduling, we may not even need to talk about this movie very much. I'm trying to see when it comes out.
It comes out April 27th.
April 27th. Okay. So this is Truth or Dare. This is the worst trailer of the week. It's basically about like some sort of devilish version of the Truth or Dare game, where suddenly these people have this weird, awkward smile on their face, and then they kill other people. And okay, so I don't know. It's just like some sort of like ghoulish. I can't remember. Is it like a ghoul or something? Like is haunting them? Whatever the case.
Basically, it's Blumhouse did Ouija too, but he's basically just doing Ouija again with a different game.
Yeah, pretty much like just a different game. So here's the funny thing. I saw this trailer in front of Insidious last week.
As did I.
Yeah, it was actually because of the timing of me getting there. It was the only trailer that I caught. It was the last one on the reel, and then they went into the movie, and so I happened to be in there, and there were a few people in the theater. And dude, so this is I was there seeing a horror trailer in front of a horror movie, and there were waves of laughter.
Oh, it's a funny trailer.
It is I mean, it's not meant to be, but it is absolutely hysterical. The face that the people make when they're possessed by this spirit is literally one of the funniest things. It's not even remotely creepy or off-putting. It is hilarious, and it's not meant to be. So that makes it even funnier. Yeah, this whole premise sounds so stupid. It's this weird, like, is it high concept or is it low concept? I can't tell. It's some sort of, I guess, low concept.
I have a couple theories on the trailer, and I don't back up the trailer at all, by the way, but I'll let you finish your thought, and I'm gonna shock you with some of the stuff I'm about to say.
Okay, well, pretty much, like, this looks awful, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
No, okay. I mean, like, literally, it looks like this is going to be sort of the Bye-Bye Man of this year.
So
in that arena.
I have three things to say. One, the trailer is awful. So yes, even me, as a Jason Blum fanboy, I can acknowledge you, and I can tell you to your face when one of his movies is bad, a trailer comes out, it's bad. It's just not a good trailer. Two, I think this was probably edited, not representing the movie. I actually think this is a horror comedy. I think this is exactly like Happy Death Day. Because you're right. All the imagery in the movie, even the deaths, are funny. Even when it has that weird cutoff where the library was noisy and then it cuts off and she's like, she's cheating on him or something. Like, even that, like, comedic relief was hilarious. And so I don't think this is a horror film. I think this is a horror comedy. And the third thing, I like Jason Blum a lot. Joel knows this. The whole world knows this. I know when he puts out bad stuff. I'm not just some blind person that's just like, oh, everything he touches is so amazing. No. But, believe it or not, the cutting of this trailer and the possibility of it being a horror comedy masked as a horror film and edited poorly is not the worst thing about this trailer, and that irked me. The worst thing about this trailer is seeing at the very end that I don't know if this is because of a copyright thing or if this has become because Jason Blum's ego is a little big. Putting your production name in front of the title as the actual title is kind of off-putting. When it's revealed as Blumhouse's Truth or Dare,
oh yeah,
that's kind of off-putting. And I don't know if it's because Jason Blum wants to brand his stuff now. I actually don't think that's the case. Because if this were the case, he would have done that before Insidious. He didn't do that. So I'm thinking this is a copyright thing where it's
I don't know who the conflict would be with.
But see, we didn't know that conflict with the butler, and they had to do it with that for 100-year-old
Well, that
movie.
was because of a previously existing movie. This is a game that people just play at parties and stuff, and it just doesn't feel like that it belongs to anybody. So I don't know. Maybe it was the ego thing, like you said. I don't think that there's any specific conflict with some party involved.
So here are my two suggestions. One, his ego is too huge and he needs to get that out of the room. Or two, there was a low-budget movie somewhere called Truth or Dare. They caught wind of Jason Blum producing this movie. They probably sent an email or a letter or something to that company, to Blumhouse Productions. They didn't want to have any stink over it in terms of, stories written about it. So I will guarantee you they had to put his name in front of the title just to avoid copyright. That I'm not saying that's probably the case, but because Joel's right, it's probably the ego thing. But there is that possibility that there was no story brought up about this, so he had to put his name in front of it. But if it's an ego thing, Jason, I'm going to tell you this as a friend and as a fan of most of the stuff you've done. Don't do this, because if this is in front of this movie, that means it's in front of all the stuff going forward. And I hate inflated egos in this industry enough, so it's like, I respect you, sir. Even with the crap movies that you produce, it's like, you're doing it as part of a business hustle. I get it. This is a business. Do what you gotta do. But do not put your name in front of the title. So that's all I gotta say. As a fan of this man, just please don't. So out of all the trailers that have dropped this week, Joel, what was your favorite one?
Probably the Nutcracker in the Four Realms.
Which is funny, because mine was Sicario too. So we have two vastly different tastes this week, which is totally fine.
You're wrong. Just kidding.
No, you're wrong. So what about you guys? News stories, trailers, please comment down below and let us know. Let's jump into the movie reviews, guys. We're doing the Commuter and the Post this week, but we're going to start with the Post first, because this is a movie that Joel and I have been sitting on for literally 2 months. So Joel, I will let you explain to the people what this movie is about, who's involved with it, and let's talk about it.
All right. Yeah, so our first review is The Post. And this is the new movie from director Steven Spielberg. It's his first of two within like 3 months of each other. And this one is about the release of the Pentagon Papers to the Washington Post after the New York Times was censured and told that they can't publish it. So the movie follows multiple stories, but the main one is the publisher, the editor and the publisher there, played by Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, kind of enter into this legal battle to try to figure out, how they do this without going to jail, which causes a lot of shockwaves in the American sort of political establishment. And so not only does it star Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, it stars a wide range of TV stars. It seems like Steven Spielberg just watched a bunch of TV and put everybody that he saw into this movie. You got what's his name? Goodness me, he plays Daniel Ellsberg. Hold on, guys. But okay, so it's got like Bob Odenkirk as Ben Bagdikian. Let's see here. Matthew Rhys from The Americans plays Daniel Ellsberg. You've got Tracy Letts, Bradley Whitford, Bruce Greenwood, Carrie Coon, Sarah Paulson, David Cross in a little tiny role there. Just a bunch of people, basically. And Michael Stuhlbarg in one of his 3 big movies this season, with The Shape of Water and Call Me By Your Name being the others. Pat Healy, Zach Woods, Jesse Plemons, who has this great scene with Bob Odenkirk. And it wasn't until halfway through the scene that I realized, oh my gosh, it's Saul and Todd. It's great. Anyway, so this is one that I was excited for because I'm a big fan of journalism movies. All the President's Men is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's one of the best things ever made. Certainly had a lot of love for Spotlight a few years ago. I thought that Best Picture winner, whether or not I wanted it to win is kind of irrelevant. I was a Revenant guy, but certainly Spotlight was right outside my top 10 that year, and I love that. I think that there's a lot of underappreciation of these movies. They don't tend to be very visual in style. This one kind of changes that a little bit, but generally speaking, they tell vital stories, and that's usually where my intrigue in these movies lies. So I was very excited for this, and Chase, I will hand it over to you. Were you excited for this one?
Yes, I was, and this is literally no joke. Joel and I saw this movie for the first time in the middle of November. So we saw this way early, thank you 20th Century Fox, but we had to sit on it for a while. And so, a lot of the fun of seeing this movie was we saw it early, and then Joel and I just have been kind of watching this movie grow with the awards and see which ones it's going to be nominated for, which ones is it gravitating towards. So it's been fun to kind of see this movie progress, but I've been looking forward to it, ever since I heard about Spielberg tackling the Pentagon Papers, as it was originally titled. I was all for it. Like you said, journalism movies or any type of espionage or real life history, I am all for. And so the cast was great, the director was great. It had a lot of stuff going for it, and just to start out with my initial reaction, I loved it. Now, it didn't make my top 10, as you guys have heard that episode, but I still stand by my grade. I still stand by it being a very, very good movie. But yeah, I kind of loved it. Now, I still have my same issues with it, but it doesn't hinder my grade. And I know Joel rolls his eyes when I tell him my issues with it, but I think they're valid. But Joel, what were your initial reactions? Because when the movie was done, usually when Joel and I see movies, we usually turn to each other, and it's interesting to see or hear the other person talk. So when you turned to me, Joel, when the movie was done, what did you say to me?
Oh, I mean, I can't remember the exact words, but I loved this movie. I was so excited for it, and I think that it's been so long since we saw it. I've actually forgotten your issues with it. Actually, it's been almost 2 months, like you said, and I've seen tons of movies since then. But yeah, I mean, my initial thoughts are that it's a pretty terrific Spielberg movie. Probably for me, his best, maybe since Lincoln, possibly before that with Munich, which that would be a big gap. But it's certainly in that range. I think it's one of his most intelligent, one of the most intelligent screenplays that he's worked with by Josh Singer, who co-wrote Spotlight, and then the initial draft of this screenplay was written by a 31-year-old woman named Liz Hannah. This is the first screenplay that she had ever written, so that's a pretty impressive first time to get your screenplay noticed by Spielberg. It's pretty impressive.
Basically, what Joel is saying, like, there's a reason why he age dropped her, is like, doesn't matter how old you are, you can always break through this industry somehow. Like, always keep going for your dreams and your goals. And she even said that in her Twitter post. She was like, listen, I've been turned down many times, and this was just the one script that I wrote that finally broke through. Yeah,
and no wonder. It's a very well written, very literate movie about the whole process of. It's very much about process too. It's this whole process of trying to find an avenue for your story to become trying to basically release this and tell the American government that there's no brick wall like the press. There's a reason the First Amendment is worded like it is, that the press is essentially as long as there's structures within the journalistic occupation or the journalistic process, what am I trying to say? Process to there's checks and balances within that, but as far as the government goes, there's no brick wall like trying to fight against them, because we have freedom of press for a reason, and this movie is very much about that. And it didn't make my top 10 either. I could swear it was going to, but just other movies kind of went above it. But it's a terrific movie. It's heartfelt. It's not a subtle movie, let's just say, but that's because it's directed by Spielberg, and he works with bluntness when he needs to. And so let's kind of speed through this and the Commuter, because it's going to be a long show.
Well, I mean, this is going to be super easy for us because the Post we both love, so we'll just start with the negatives, get them out of the way, even if you don't have any, and then we can just jump into the positives.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it basically it follows the typical structure of something like this, which it could have, branched out a little bit structurally, but other than that, yeah, I really don't have any problems.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just very minimal and just more observational, except for one of them, which, our good friend Brian actually agrees with, is that one of the major issues with the movie, and this is just a little nitpick, but it's very noticeable. The first 20 minutes or so does kind of drag and doesn't really pick up speed until the papers are actually acquired in that wonderful hotel scene with Bob Odenkirk. And so it felt a little draggy, but I'm telling you, once they retrieve the papers, it's like a nonstop thrill ride involving newspapers. So it's that was just a slight negative for me. Spielberg has admitted that this was a rush job, and so I can notice when stuff is kind of lit very, not poorly, but just with a lot of shadows, and that kind of indicated to me that was a rushed scene. So there are a couple scenes like that where these shadows are kind of, very present, and it's not really subtle lighting. And, Joel can make that argument that, they were in a specific room where it can require that, but I'm going to go ahead and just refute that and go, well, you could cover it up just a little bit.
No, I think that it was a specific creative choice, not a mistake. I think that because that's what Janusz Kaminski does. He's been doing that for years. That's fine. That's totally fine. But what you're saying, it's not fine though, because what you're saying is that he makes a mistake by choosing this, and that it's a choice based on the quickness of the production. It's not. He's been doing the heavenly light through windows thing since a long time ago.
I'm not talking about through the windows. I'm talking about the specific study scenes where you have Meryl Streep contemplating on stuff, and it's in her study room. I'm not talking about window lighting.
Oh.
The window lighting, I don't have a problem.
I have no idea, because I thought that it looked stunning. I think that this is really good work from Kaminski, especially on such a short. I guess it's rushed. I don't think that that's a thing worth mentioning, because we still, have a movie that we're watching. The production of it, the quickness of it isn't really relevant unless it's like genuinely readily apparent that it was very quick. For me, I think that it looks pretty stunning because it adds interesting color choices. Involving, yes, the color gray, but it's still a color. To the palette of the movie. So you have that opening scene that's, this controlled chaos warfare that was obviously shot during this, rush project, as you called it. It was it's an impressive bit of controlled chaos with a bunch of the sound design being stunning during the shootout and all of that.
Okay, so
it's evidence of Spielberg's mastery of like this of all of the elements of his filmmaking. And so for me, I just felt like the visual look of the movie was trying to differentiate itself from sort of the procedural look of stuff like Spotlight and All the President's Men, which take place largely in offices. This takes place not only there, it's not in clean-cut offices of a building. It's in rooms of houses, in a region where a lot of the stuff takes place in the late afternoons and at night. And so I think that it's a specific creative choice to have a lot of shadow work. Shadows are very important with stuff like this.
I totally get that. And I'm not saying the cinematography is bad. The cinematography is good. I'm just pinpointing a couple. I'm saying two scenes with lighting. That's all I'm saying. Like, the rest of the movie is fine visually, but there are a couple scenes, and I'm literally just in two scenes with the lighting that's just a little bit noticeable. Everything else I liked. There's even really cool shots at the very end on how the paper is made in its process that was really good visually. I'm just saying, like, as a person that went to school for this stuff, when you admit that something is a rush job, that's going to be in the back of my mind. And when these two scenes came up and the way they were lit, I'm just pinpointing those two scenes. I mean, that doesn't hinder my grade at all. I'm just, when you have overtly big shadows like that, it could have been a creative choice, and that's cool if they want to say that. I'm just saying, from my point of view, that looked like, hey, we got to light this scene like super fast. Even if it's the only light source in the room, that's fine. but those shadows almost reminded me of like a black and white movie. And it was just a little distracting. That's all I'm saying.
Certainly he's trying to emulate, kind of a sepia tone kind of thing, which throughout the movie, and I think that's nice because it does remind you of black and white, and black and white, is timeless, so it doesn't age like color does, and so I had no problem with it. I guess we differ there.
But I mean, like I said, it doesn't hinder my grade, and like the last thing, this also doesn't hinder my grade. It's just more of an observation, and they could have edited the ending just a little bit better and just ended it way sooner they did. But I thought the ending tag to the movie almost felt like a TV cliffhanger, and I was like, we get it. We're not idiots. Like, we know what happens.
A lot of people have been saying that. I think that a lot of that kind of feeling has to be gotten through hindsight. And if the hindsight here is that there's no sequel involving whatever comes up at the end of that movie, I think it's a reminder of the fact that there are, scandals for like every few years. So
listen, I totally get that, but the way it was cut together with the music, it felt like a TV cliffhanger.
Well, I, Tonya did the same thing. I mean, it didn't end on that, but it did the same thing where we had, not to review I, Tonya, but I, Tonya is about the Tonya Harding thing, which kind of was closing up shop as I don't want to give away the ending. I guess it's not really hugely important, but as the O.J. Simpson thing was also heating up. So it did the same thing. It was sort of a similar way of saying that, oh yeah, well, I mean, this controversy ended. Now this one begins.
So maybe it was the music then, because the music was.
And it also has to do with the same president. So I think that's another reason.
And that's fine. Maybe it was just the music then, because the music felt very like upbeat and very peppy. It's almost like tune in next week for the next type of episode versus like I, Tonya, where it was like, yeah, it was there. And they acknowledge it, and we move on. This was more of like, hey, you know what else is coming up type of deal. I'm just saying that's the feeling I got, and I don't mind the way it ended. I'm just saying you could have cut that off and ended the way it did with the phone call and the going back and forth between Nixon and Streep and Hanks. Edited it, kind of ramp up the tension with that, and just kind of ended it with a hard cut to black. I think that would have been more effective, but that's. I'm not the one that directed it. Spielberg did. He went with that choice, and his choice of adding that little stinger, that's fine. I'm just saying it felt a little too TV. But regardless, even with my little nitpicks, it doesn't refute the fact that with the grade I'm about to give it. Because jumping into the positives, when they actually pick up the papers, it is a well-crafted thriller. But like you said, has a lot to say. And Joel and I are not going to get into politics on this because I've gotten in trouble many, many times with a couple of people that listen to our show. And I will just say that Spielberg has said numerous times, I have not said anything about our current administration because he wanted to say it through a movie. He did that with this. So this movie punches you in the face with socially relevant stuff, but it's done in such a slick, thriller-esque manner after they get the papers that I was entertained. I was, I was kind of glued to the screen with like the attention to detail, whether it be like, some of the characters, just the way the cinematography moved with them, and the way the dialogue was just so potent, it just kind of hit you. Like, it was so precise that I was also entertained, but also learning that, what Spielberg was trying to go for in terms of like history is going to repeat itself if we don't watch out. So I thought all that was great. I thought I'm one of the few people in the camps that actually believe the supporting actors and the performances there actually overshadow the main people, which is funny to say because it's like you said, they're all from TV, but I just think them as an ensemble did so well that you forget that Hanks and Streep are in it, because I was so in tune to what the supporting characters were saying that they kind of got overshadowed. That's not a negative. I'm just saying that, I preferred the supporting cast over them. I thought the music was, except for the stinger, was really energetic. It really kind of added to the pace to the film. But I just think overall in the positives, the way to sum it up is that Spielberg wanted to have his voice in the political discussion in our climate that we're in now. He made a socially relevant movie. It was important. It was also entertaining. It was slick, and had some really interesting monologues that stay with you, interesting shots with the cinematography that stay with you, especially with that last little bit at the end of the movie when they're, printing the paper and going through that process. That whole process of just printing a paper was fascinating. So there's definitely stuff that you remember from this movie. And, I'll give my grade when Joel talks about his positives, but I think it's a very entertaining movie that has a lot to say without bashing you over the head entirely with preachy messaging. So I really love this movie quite a bit. So Joel, I mean, obviously you don't really have any negatives except for maybe the clichédness of it, but that doesn't bother you. What about this movie struck you the most in terms of, wow, I was really captivated by that?
Well, I think you pretty much touched on it. It's the pacing of the thing. It really paces it. It paces it out like a thriller, like it's a legitimate espionage thriller. And the editing by Sarah Brochar and Michael Kahn, who's of course the Spielberg regular, is so fleet and considers every scene, every element of the story to be important. I feel like there's very little. There's probably not any deleted scenes in this movie. I that's what I legitimately feel. I think that they shot everything and used everything that they needed, and they told a complete story that was fully engaging, and the performances are excellent. I guess we slightly disagree again on the supporting cast, sort of. I love them. I love the supporting cast, and I think that, but I think that the movie does give them, almost all of them, at least one scene where they are able to have a big moment. You think of Sarah Paulson's big moment between herself and Tom Hanks. She plays his wife in the movie. And then you think of Jesse Plemons and Bob Odenkirk's big scene. And actually Odenkirk has multiple ones.
Yes, he does.
Matthew Rhys has that scene in the really at the beginning of the movie, when he first has that thought of, I got to find the papers and all that. And Bruce Greenwood is terrific. The people that don't really get a moment, Carrie Coon, David Cross just kind of sits in the background. So there are lighter players that don't get any screen time. But I like the fact that each of the supporting players seem to get at least one big moment, and Spielberg gave him that opportunity. It's very much about his sort of reining in of the cast. He was absolutely making a statement, as you said. It's a movie that very much is directed by Spielberg, but it's also a movie about its screenplay and about how the and just how well it's written. Its writing is as loud as its filmmaking in that sense, and it's not a subtle movie. Like I said at the beginning, it's very much, it's not hitting us over the head with preaching messages, but it does have
it finds that balance.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's telling a story in a very literate way, but it also understands that the point of the story is incredibly relevant too, and so it doesn't back away from that fact, and it does so with a lot of aplomb and a lot of showmanship, but also a lot of nuance where it counts in the part of the movie that I think is actually, you didn't I don't think you mentioned it yet, but the point about the character of Kay Graham, who is a woman and is leading a newspaper, and a lot of men don't think much of that fact.
That was awesome when Streep was, I mean, this is not the exact verbiage, but she basically says F you to them and is like, I'm gonna do what I want.
And that's why I love Meryl Streep in this movie. There's been a lot of complaints recently that she's kind of phoned in some performances, but this is not one of those times. She's really good here. And
which, by the way, just a little fun fact, I didn't know this until someone brought it up. It's the first time Hanks, Streep, and Spielberg have all worked together.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't think Streep has worked with Spielberg.
No,
Don't think
she
that I
hasn't. Isn't
don't.
that weird?
Yeah, it's very strange. Certainly, she's worked with. Wait, has she worked with Tom Hanks? I
No,
think
this
she.
is a first for everyone.
Okay, well, I mean, Spielberg's worked with Hanks before,
Correct.
but yeah, all three of them together, it's a mighty pairing, and it's a great movie. So go ahead and I guess wrap up, give your grade.
Yeah, listen. I'm gonna go ahead and just say this right now, and I told you, just told you, I'm not gonna say anything political, but I do work with a lot of police officers, and I've kind of addressed this movie, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to see it. It just looks so biased and so left wing." And I tell people that even are for this current administration and don't want to see this propaganda like this. I tell people this: the Post, regardless if you are right wing, left wing, it's a great piece of entertainment that touches upon actual history and done in such a sleek manner. Even if you just refute everything and just call it propaganda, it's still an entertaining movie, and I still highly suggest you see it because, like Joel said, the nothing feels wasted. It's an airtight script, airtight editing and directing. That it's just a really good piece of entertainment, and I'm cool with giving my grade. It is a solid A for me. Highly recommend it. Didn't make my top 10 because last year was super competitive. So, Joel, what is your grade for The Post?
My grade for The Post is an F minus. No, I'm just kidding.
Dear God.
It's obviously an A. It's just a terrific piece of work. So our next movie is going to be our first review of the new year. It's The Commuter. This is from Jean-Michel Collet-Serra, and it's his latest collaboration with Liam Neeson. And this one stars Neeson as Michael McCauley, who is a former cop. Now he's an insurance executive, and he has just been laid off of his job as the movie opens, which comes at basically the worst possible time because his son is going to college, and he and his wife have two mortgages. So he is heading home from having been fired, and first he stops at a bar to catch up with an old friend before he has to do that, played by Patrick Wilson. And then he heads home on the train, and he is approached by a woman named Joanna, played by Vera Farmiga, who basically asks him a hypothetical that quickly becomes not a hypothetical but very real. What would you do if I could give you basically $100,000 to find somebody who does not belong on this train and take back a thing that they have stolen? It's certainly a moral question, although this movie isn't really about the moral responsibility. It's very much about the procedural aspect of him trying to find this person and not letting anybody know what he's doing, because of course the threat is that some secret organization will kill his wife and son if he doesn't comply. So, and of course there are other stakes involved on this train. So I was kind of excited. I've only liked actually one of the other collaborations between Collet-Serra and Neeson, and that was Nonstop back in 2014. I thought that movie, it kind of crapped the bed at the end, but up until then it was a nice sort of Agatha Christie kind of thriller. And as bad as Unknown was and as sort of bland as Run All Night was, I thought that this might be somewhere more along the lines of Nonstop, and I was correct. So I kind of like this. Chase, what about you? Were you excited for this one?
Okay, so this was actually my first movie from director Liam Neeson combo. Now, I've seen 3 of his previous movies, 2 of which I like, 1 of which I don't like. The one Joel mentioned, Unknown, don't care for that. But I gotta tell you, I have a sweet spot for Orphan and The Shallows, and I love both of those movies. Such an interesting take on those types of stories.
I gotta see Orphan. I've heard that's an insane movie, just insane. I haven't.
It's pure insanity, but even if you knew the twist going in, it's still just it's a fascinating horror movie to behold, and it's actually produced by Leonardo DiCaprio. So there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I've been a fan of the works I have seen from him, but I've never seen a Liam Neeson, Colette Serra combo,
except for Unknown.
Yeah, excuse me. Except for Unknown, but in terms of his recent ones, I have not seen Nonstop or Run All Night. And apparently the sirens are blasting out my window. All right, so all right. I saw the trailer to this, and it looks like typical January fare. Where it's like, okay, they're just throwing stuff in this month, and we'll see what happens. And believe it or not, I'm kind of with Joel. I had a good time with it. Yeah, I liked it. It was a nice piece of entertainment to where it's not about the reveal or the generic nature of the movie. It's just more about the journey and just kind of taking you along this nice little thriller that you're going to have fun with at the movie. So, let's break it down, man. So for me, in terms of negatives, I've only got basic things to say about it, to where this movie primarily takes place on a train, and I think the biggest issue with the movie, even that goes past with its generic capabilities, is its green screen. It can get a little too noticeable sometimes, and I realize that the set is just on a train, and there's green screen around the train. Some of it's noticeable, some of it's not. It kind of takes you out, but whatever. It's like with these type of movies, is that really an issue? No, it's not. With the reveal of the movie, it was something that was, you can kind of see it from a mile coming. Like, especially when they introduce certain characters at the beginning of the film, you're like, okay, that person's gonna be the bad guy. It's gonna be a complete character swap where you're like, oh, the movie's presenting him as the bad person and him as the good person. Oh, it's gonna be a switcheroo. So you see it from a mile coming. So it's not really the reveal of the movie that's shocking, or revelations of like, oh my god, what's the secret organization? It's like, even that's not really explained. It's just kind of like, it's the journey of the movie and the complete thrills and pure entertainment that what drive this movie, and that's what Colette Serra is always best at. Even when you watch like Orphan or The Shallows, like, he's really good at just making an entertaining movie. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to make a poignant movie that has to have some type of message. This is just a movie that kicks ass. It just simply is. And I guess another slight negative is that, yes, some of the dialogue and some of the acting can be hokey, but you know what? I gotta give props to Liam Neeson and Vera Farmiga. They do with what they can, and they make it as entertaining as possible. Because I love me some Vera Farmiga, and I love me some Liam Neeson. They did the best they could, and they made it watchable. I think that's the takeaway, is that this could have easily been the cheesiest and corniest thing. But you know what? These people that were behind this movie, they knew what they were making, and they made it into something that was worth a ticket price of admission to a theater, and I'm totally fine with that. So those are my negatives. Joel, are there any negatives that kind of poked out to you and you're like, I don't really buy that?
There's a moment where, I don't want to get into any spoilers, but there's a moment where the train jumps tracks.
Oh yeah, that was pretty bad.
And the movie itself from that point on also pretty much jumps every track.
Well, it's almost like when that point happens, the movie kind of deflates a little bit, because I will agree with you. It's like the energy of the movie is like, oh, the train literally stops the movie and stops off the tracks. It's almost like From that moment on, it's not as fun as it was before that, when it was just him investigating and trying to, all that. But of course, it kind of also goes in hand with the movie's MO, which is that it kind of throws in everything but the kitchen sink. Right.
Which, so you get it. The reveal is obvious as soon as they introduced, there's two characters that they introduced that are obviously of the Chekhov variety. And they come in later on, and exactly what's going to happen. It's not at all a surprise. But of course the movie's not about that. The movie's story is Liam Neeson as this desperate man who, turns out to be a lot more capable than his enemies expect him to be. And for that purpose, it's a pretty good movie. So I guess I'm kind of segueing into my positives. Basically, the big negative is that it's very predictable.
Yeah, little bit.
Yeah, but it's not even really like a huge problem. It basically separates the movie from even really approaching an A level, but it's fun up until that point because jumping into my positives, it's Liam Neeson's movie. He's good in this movie, and he presents a portrait of this guy who is in the midst of the American middle class. There's that line of dialogue with the Goldman Sachs guy.
Oh, it was great.
Which is awesome. Oh my gosh. And yeah, so I mean, stuff like that. It's just he's great. And I thought, like you said, Vera Farmiga's great. We get Jonathan Banks in here, who's a lot of fun when he shows up. He's always fun. And I also thought I haven't seen Lady Macbeth, but the Lady Macbeth person, like the actress who kind of rose to become notable in that movie that came out last year, is in this one. She's the goth punk person, and it's just neat to see her kind of be in this big Hollywood movie right after making the rounds as an indie star that's kind of come out of the woodwork in the last few months. I still need to see Lady Macbeth. Anyway, I thought she was a lot of fun, and I thought some of the supporting players were awkward, but they were good. And the editing is the visual effects, like you said, are kind of hokey sometimes, but it's a well edited movie. It's well constructed and very straightforward. For instance, I like that basically at the beginning of the movie we get this montage of like images of their formula that they have every morning,
the everyday routine, basically.
Yeah, the everyday routine, and then the movie doesn't even actually end the montage. It just extends the last like segment of it into the plot. So you can just imagine like this is literally a disruption of their pattern, their life pattern of him getting up at 6 a.m. and then getting to the train, I assume by 7, and then getting on, to go to work by 8. And then, here's this, and then he comes home the same way, and here's this like literal disruption. So it's not even an interruption of that montage. It's just an extension on it, which I thought was really clever.
It's a great way to open up a movie.
Yeah, it really is, and it puts a laser focus on the plot in the process, and I appreciated that. And on the characters, or at least on the character of him, he's really the only one who matters here. But yeah, it's just a really solid, fun time at the movies, and that's pretty much the gist of this. There's not really much to talk about with it.
Yeah, I mean, this, like I said, it's not like some poignant movie that's gonna be like, oh god, the characters are saying this, and this is what Colette Serra was trying to say. It's like, no, he made some great entertainment, and some of the positives, like I have to say, even with the dialogue and the visual effects being hokey and cheesy sometimes, Joel's right, man. This is such a well-edited movie to where I didn't mind the terrible green screen because I was so invested by what was going on. I was like, I just want him to find this bag. That's all I cared about. I was like, yeah. I was so invested by Liam Neeson finding a freaking bag. I was like, I am so in for this. So it's a really well-edited movie. There's even some really great action sequences that I thought were filmed well because Colette Serra really likes to have the camera focus on the action, not cut as much in this movie. He really weaves in and out. It's impressive production design of the train because they really like capture. It looks like a real train, it looks like an actual functioning train, and he likes to weave in and out. He did the same thing in Nonstop on the Plane. It's elegant camera work inside of a confined space, and that's and it really it puts you into the situation, which is exciting because as the movie kept going, I was like, man, I don't even care what happens next. I'm fully invested. And then in the middle of the movie, it breaks with a one shot, and I'm like, dude, like he just throws in like all this like you said, elegant camera work and just different ways to shoot something or follow him throughout the train. To where as film junkies, we just get excited. We're just like, oh, that was cool. So it might be cliched, but I do think that if you were skeptical on this movie, I still think it's a really good time at the movies. I enjoyed myself. I had a lot more fun than I thought I would. Great opening. A great performance by Liam Neeson just driving this thing home. Literally deflates all the energy towards the end, gets a little predictable, but you know what? Who cares? I'm going to give this movie a C+. And the reason I give it that plus is because it is a little bit better than the average movie, even with its problems, but it's just a really well-done thriller, and I love that one shot. It was such a great one shot to where like that did factor into my plus. So, but I think a C+ is a good grade for this movie. So, Joel, I'm actually really curious now, since we kind of think about the same thing with this movie. Where does your grade lie with it?
It's a B-.
Okay.
I kind of liked it. C+ gets into an arena of like actively conflicted to me, but B-, solid. It isn't mind blowing, but it's fun. So. Nice little. If more January thrillers could be this dumb and smart at the same time, that would be great. So, so those are our grades: B- for me, C+ for Chase, and then we both gave an A to The Post. So tell us what you think of both of those movies. All right, so it's time for the box office, and Chase, it is your guess, but I'm going to remind everybody. Sort of, I guess. It's kind of a newish rule, but I'm going to give Chase hints about the wide releases that could be in the top 5 that are in the top 10 somewhere. So they're contenders to be in the top 5 even if they aren't. So in this case, there are 3 wide releases, and those are The Commuter, Paddington 2, and Proud Mary. So Chase... And also remember, the movies that have opened recently and limited release that are gaining speed. So I want you to guess what the top 5 are.
Oh God. Okay, this is really tough for me because I know 2 of them are in there for sure. I still think Star Wars and Jumanji are still in there. I think The Greatest Showman probably snuck up in there. And out of the new ones, I'm gonna. That's tough because Proud Mary didn't get any exposure, but then again, it's that type of movie that would just like come in there and sneak in and kick everyone else's asses. Oh wow, this is tough. All right, number 5, Greatest Showman. Number 4, Paddington 2. Number 3, The Commuter. Number 2, Star Wars. Number 1, Jumanji.
Okay, no. So
thank you for trying to pat me on the back and encourage me. You're just like simply no.
So number 5 is The Greatest Showman.
Okay, I got that right.
Hey, Chase. So just kind of talk a little bit because I've got to be right back.
Oh,
I'm gonna step away. So don't look.
Okay, all right. So number 5, The Greatest Showman, I got right. So when Joel tells you I always get stuff wrong, just remember this moment, folks. Remember this moment where Joel just admitted I got number 5 right, which is fascinating to me because I've been hearing stories about The Greatest Showman like slowly bumping up there in numbers. I didn't like it at all, to be quite frank with you, but I'm glad people are enjoying it. Having something that they can gravitate towards. I'm excited. I'm excited for him to reveal the next portion of the list because I have a feeling that Jumanji once again has upset everyone. Once again, I still haven't seen it, by the way. I have not seen Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, but The Greatest Showman popping in there. Okay, so since he told me The Greatest Showman, I'm starting to like rethink my list now. I'm thinking.
All right, Chase. So,
man, I was having this great monologue, and you just ruined it.
All right, so I'm sorry about that, guys. All right, The Greatest Showman is number 5, with 11.8 million, for a total of 94.6 million on an $84 million budget.
That is too high for that movie.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. So then number 4 is Insidious: The Last Key.
Oh, I completely forgot about that movie.
I'm not surprised. It's terrible. It's 12.1 million for a total of 48.4 million on a $10 million. It's not that bad,
by the way. Joel is wrong on this one.
On a $10 million budget. It's really like off-putting.
It's really not that bad.
Well, I mean, I watched a movie last night that's infinitely worse, but still. All right, number 3 is The Commuter.
Okay, so I was right on that one. So I got 2 of them right. You act like I was completely wrong on all 5 of them.
Well, no, you were wrong on all 5. You were wrong on 2, but anyway, number 3 was The Commuter with 13.5 million. It doesn't have a listed budget, but I don't know how much that would cost. In any case, let's see. So worldwide, no, it's not open anywhere else. So all right, number 2 was The Post.
Wow, it actually snuck in there.
Which rose from space 15 to number 2, a 995.4% rise.
Wow.
So for 18.6 million, it's got 23.1 million so far. It's a $50 million movie. I doubt that Spielberg's super worried about this.
No.
And then number 1, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle.
Okay, so I got 3 out of the 5 right. That is a 60% margin, which means I can completely fail. So F you.
It's got it made $27 million this weekend.
That's crazy.
For a total of $283.2 million, and it's got a $90 million budget. So and it's $666 million worldwide. So people are seeing this movie, and I don't understand why. I think it's awful. I gave it 1 star or something. I don't like that movie at all. So let me see. So your guess is you had Paddington 2 in there, right?
Yeah.
So Paddington 2 opened at number 7 with 10.6 million. Not very good, but I don't think it costs very much either. So I don't think it's a huge worry. I saw the movie. I will mention that in a second. And then Proud Mary opened at number 8 with 10 million on a $14 million budget.
That's actually not bad for a movie that had little to no marketing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we didn't see anything with this. So that's pretty much it. We had a couple of small releases that came out, but whatever. Big rises, however, this is completely random. So, you had the 995% raise for The Post, but that's not even close to the biggest and weirdest rise this week. We had 2 very baffling ones. Okay, the first is a faith-based movie called Let There Be Light, which was produced by Sean Hannity and stars Kevin Sorbo. Yeah. That rose 1,769.1%.
Wow.
And I don't know why or how, because it didn't add or drop any theaters from its run. It's up to 7 million, and it made $1,271 this week. I don't know what caused that or why. It's baffling. I didn't even know it was still in theaters, to be completely honest. Because I think it opened in it's in its 12th week, so I don't know what's going on there. The other one was, and you're not going to believe this, but Marshall rose from number 58 to number 23 because it added 337 theaters in a second run.
Wow.
And rose, it made $405,000 this week for a total of $9.9 million. It's a $12 million movie, so not too bad. And it rose 7,314.4%. So I don't know where that came from. Otherwise, let's see. Star Wars fell out of the top 5 this week. It's at number 6 with 11.3. To kind of finish off your guesses, that's pretty much it. No big drops. I guess Downsizing dropped 86% from number 14 to number 25. It only made $300,000 this week, but whatever. That's pretty much it in terms of the news. So yeah, that's the box office news this week, folks.
Well, thank you for shattering all my hopes and dreams, because I can't believe a Star Wars movie, and this week of its run is out of the top 5. That is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? They might be back in next week. We never know with Star Wars.
who knows? But you know what? It was a good weekend indeed, because there was a lot of surprises. I didn't think the Post would get up there at all. Even though we love it, it's just I'm thinking about it business wise. I didn't think it'd do well, but I've been wrong before. I've been wrong most times, but this is. It's good stuff, but that is the box office results, guys. So that is it for episode 213. Joel, what are we quickly, before we go, what are we doing next week for 214?
All right, so next week our main review is going to be the Phantom Thread. And then I also kind of wanted to briefly talk about the fact that we are going to be instituting a lot of extra reviews. Sometimes we'll both do 2 movies, and then most of the time to get some talk started about movies, I'll be doing extra reviews of movies that aren't as prominent, but are certainly things to be talked about. So next week, my extra review will be for 12 Strong, which is the new sort of 13 hours kind of lone survivor thing that's coming out with Chris Hemsworth. But our main review will be Phantom Thread. That's the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie with Daniel Day-Lewis. Cannot wait to see that. I know Chase kind of hinted at it, but he's already seen it, and I can't wait to hear what he thinks. So I do not know yet, and I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, that is going to be an interesting episode, because I'm telling you guys this right now. There is a specific moment in Phantom Thread that will either make you love it or hate it. Not even joking. There's one moment in the movie that will pretty much, pun intended, unthread the entire movie, and you're like, okay, I got to sit and think about this for a while. So I'm curious to know Joel's thoughts, but he does not know mine. It will be a surprise for both of us. So that will be next week's episode. But before we end this episode, Joel, just real quickly, where can the people find you online?
You can find my writing at joelonfilm.com. In addition to The Post and The Commuter, I also reviewed Paddington 2, which is quite good. And I've got a review coming later today sometime because I've decided to ramp up the number of movies that I review on my website. I've got a review later today for a little tiny Bruce Willis thriller called Acts of Violence. That's the movie that I watched last night. Oh boy. So I've got that coming today, should be up at some point tonight. And then, let's see, Twitter, you can follow me at Real Joel Copling. You can follow me on Letterboxd at jcopling. And you can also occasionally read my writing at dallasmoviescreenings.com. We've got a joint review up there for The Post that has been circulating for about a week now. And yeah, so that's pretty much where I am.
Yeah, if you want to, piggyback what he just said, Twitter for me is at Real Chaseley. Subscribe to my YouTube channel where I'll put up reviews that I may not even review on this show. You will have that. And then, of course, if you're listening to this show on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or SoundCloud, please spread this around and let people know this is the definitive podcast because, hey, guys, listen. If you made it through this entire movie podcast and you're not a movie fan, well, hopefully we convinced you to be one. We want you to keep coming back. New listeners, old listeners, we love you all. You guys are just badass people. We love you all. So, and the intro and outro music is done by my friend's band, Fervent Roze. And guess what? All the stuff that we just mentioned in the description below. We will see you guys next week for another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. Peace out, everyone. I'm Chase. That's Joel. See ya next week.
Bye.